hopes to wear out an upset against the undefeated and top-ranked 1AA team in the nation. Live from Allen E. Folsom Stadium in Statesboro, Georgia, WSAZ Television 3 presents Marshall University football. Today, the undefeated Georgia Southern Eagles host the 6-4 Thundering Herd. And today's game is being brought to you by Good afternoon, everybody. On a cool Saturday afternoon, we welcome you to Statesboro, Georgia, Marshall and Georgia Southern football. Along with Kenny Bass, this is Bob Bowen. And we expect a high-powered offensive game this afternoon. Kenny, Marshall with its high-powered passing offense.
That's right. And, of course, John Gregory is the man who pulls the trigger for Marshall University, the 6'3", 250-pound senior from Port St. Lucie, Florida. He's the all-time leader in the Southern Conference in passing yardage and career touchdowns with 50 career touchdowns on his stint at Marshall. So it looks to be like Gregory is the key, as usual, for the Marshall Thundering Herd. 5 TD passes last week.
And defensively, the Thundering Herd will depend upon its linebackers.
That's right. Marshall's linebackers have been leading the team all year long in tackles. That won't change today, I don't think. Larry Huffman, of course, the senior out of Point Pleasant. He started 10 games, second in tackles for Marshall with 95. He's got 9 quarterback sacks. He's caused 2 fumbles. He'll be a key. Also starting today, Matt Downey has returned. He was last week. You saw a little bit of action. Of course, Downey with the wrist problem. He'll play with it in a cast. There's a screw holding the bones together. It's going to need surgery after the season. He's had 69 tackles on the year, an interception and a fumble recovery, an important addition for Marshall today.
And the Eagles of Georgia Southern, unbeaten, top-ranked 1AA team in the country. Their ground offense has been absolutely terrific all year, averaging over 400 yards a game. And the man who runs it is quarterback Raymond Gross. He is a junior out of Hinesville, Georgia. Gross has passed for 840 yards. He has rushed for another 781 yards. The chief ball carrier, another junior, number 36, Joe Ross. He is the fullback. And out of the triple option offense, or the flex bone, as Irk Russell likes to call it, he's the man who will pick up most of the yards. He has the single season record here at Georgia Southern, 1,074 yards, breaking the old record set by All-American Tracy Ham. 2 outstanding football teams offensively this afternoon. It will be up to the defense on either side to stop the opponents. Now we'll be back here in Statesboro, Georgia, and more of our pregame activities in just a moment.
Phew, what a beautiful day. Great ride. I feel good. I'd like to go dancing, but I don't have a thing to wear. I know, I'll go to Cowpuncher's Palace. Thank goodness for Cowpunchers. I found everything I needed and at great prices, too. Now all I need is to have a good time.
Cowpuncher's Palace, 4683 Covington Highway, Decatur. Western wear and boots for work or play. Cowpuncher's Palace.
Recently, we asked some frequent callers why they dial the 1-900-999-5372 party line.
Hi, I'm Lisa Rose. I call the party line because I love to meet new and exciting people.
Hi, my name's Gary Powers. I call the party line to meet new girls and to find out what the parties are.
Hi, I'm Bill Johnson, and I call the party line because it's fun.
Call now. Only $2 for the first minute, 95 cents for each additional minute. That's 1-900-999-5372.
Magnificent job done here at Georgia Southern.
That's right. Normally, football programs go through a tough period whenever they start things up. Not so here at Georgia Southern. The man behind the success here, Eric Russell, spent 17 seasons as a defensive coordinator for the Georgia Bulldogs. Came here, started the football program in 8 years. He's 78, 22, and 1. Since moving to Division I AA, he's the winningest coach in the nation. Since 1984, Russell's record 65 and 14 and 823 winning percentage. He's been a wizard. Not quite the Bear Bryant status here in the South, Bob, but I believe he's working on it, at least with these folks here in Statesboro.
The Marshall Thundering Herd, coached by George Chomp. 11 years, an assistant at Ohio State under Woody Hayes, an assistant coach at Tampa Bay with the Buccaneers. He came to Marshall 4 years ago and has had outstanding success. Led his team into the 1AA championship in 1987, dropping a tough one-point decision to Northeast Louisiana. In 4 years at Marshall, George Chomp, 33 victories, 15 losses, and 1 tie. And Chomp having a tough time this season. The Thundering Herd winning at home, losing on the road. Not doing too well on grass. Marshall's away from home, playing at Georgia Southern on grass. It will be interesting.
Georgia Southern, very tough here. Haven't been beaten. They've only been beaten once. They've won 32 in a row at Paulson Stadium.
Now we'll be back at Paulson Stadium. The kickoff for this afternoon's game between Georgia Southern and the Marshall Thundering Herd right after you look at this. We don't do this real often. Yes,
Hello.
yes. Go to your left. The sun has broken through here, Kenny. It's been a real cloudy, cool morning with a rather stiff breeze, but right now things are looking up for football action.
Pretty good day for football here. The forecast earlier in the day was said partly sunny skies and around 61 degrees. Didn't look like it was going to be that way. This morning we were here, the wind was whipping through the stadium, felt about 30 or 40 degrees, but it has warmed up a little bit, and we're ready for kickoff.
David Cool, number 3, a sophomore from Stone Mountain, Georgia, will kick it off for the Eagles of Georgia Southern. Marshall has Ron Darby back deep, along with Orlando Hatchett. And also Percy Mormon, number 29, who has not played the past couple of weeks. He is the man in the middle. Hatchett is 24, and Ron Darby is number 27. We're all set to go in Statesboro, Georgia. Booming kickoff into the end zone, and Mormon downs it. Marshall will put it in play, 1st and 10 from its own 20-yard line.
Cool with the wind at his back, has a very strong leg. He's kicked some long field goals here for the Eagles. Not a surprise that he puts it into the end zone for the touchback on the opening kick.
George Chomp has a history of some trick plays, little chicanery on the first play or two of the ball game. We'll keep an eye on how Marshall comes out and sets up. Thundering Herd runs out of a multiple pro set. Andre Motley, the wide receiver, on the left side. Ricardo Clark on the right. Eric Enoch, strong side to the right. He's number 81, the tight end. Handoff goes to Bryant, the fullback, and just off tackle for about 1 yard.
Georgia Southern comes with a defense they call the Eagles 7, Bob. It's a multiple 4-3 pressure defense. They instituted it last year.
Here is the offensive set for Marshall. Eric Enoch at tight end, Kevin Harrison, Scott Heckle, Steve Gioli, Don Mahoney, and Greg Atkins, the interior linemen. Gregory, Michael Bryant, Ron Darby, Ricardo Clark, and Andre Motley. Split backs behind Gregory. He hands it to Darby. Darby gets up across the 25 before he's knocked out of bounds by the Eagles. Rodney Oglesby. He's number 19 from Swainsboro, Georgia. The weak side cornerback forced him out of bounds. Ball right on the 25-yard line, 3rd and 5. Here's the defensive alignment for Georgia Southern. Gift Smith, Tim Brown, Pat Parr, Steve Bussoletti, the down linemen. West, Hendricks, and Berry are the 3 linebackers. Only one setback now behind John Gregory. Gregory's first pass, Andre Motley grabs it right at the 30-yard line. Kevin Whitley forced him out of bounds. It's going to be very close to a first down. He had to get to the 30, and that's right where he was.
Looked like Mike West was over on the play as well, the wide side linebacker for Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern hasn't faced a passing attack like Marshall's all year long. At least that's what the Marshall folks are saying. Chomp thinks he can move the ball against it through the air.
1st and 10 for the Thundering Herd. Ricardo Clark comes wide to the left side. Enoch, the tight end, sets up on the left. That makes the strong side that way. This is Ron Darby right at the line of scrimmage if he got that far, trying to go off the right side. And it was Mike West, the weak side linebacker, in for the stop. West is a junior, 204 from Watt Roswell, Georgia.
The thing about George Chaump and what he knows is that he cannot let Georgia Southern have the ball. As we see Darby get the handoff, cuts through the line. West comes up, makes a very nice tackle with a very short gain on the play. Chaump has to try to keep the ball out of the offense's hands for Georgia Southern.
Gregory going downfield to Mike Bartram, who was in at tight end, and Bartram, ball a little bit behind him at the 45-yard line, could not hold it. Randall Boone on the defensive coverage for the Eagles. That'll bring up third down for the Thundering Herd, and still 10 yards to go.
This is a situation Marshall doesn't really want to be in. Third and long. Georgia Southern knows the pass is coming. That catch should have been made by Bartram on his hands. A little bit behind him, but should have been caught.
That's Enoch, the tight end, shifting over to the left side. Gregory drops back. He goes to Enoch, open at the 45, into Georgia Southern territory, and finally knocked down at the Eagles' 33-yard line by Rodney Oglesby. Eric Enoch, the tight end, wide open over the middle. Take a look at this again, Kenny.
Gregory drops back, straight drop back, little play action fake in the middle. Enoch, nobody on him as he crosses over the middle. As Chaump was saying before the game, Georgia Southern hasn't faced a team that throws the ball like Marshall. He thinks he can do that. Enoch, in a short ball control type passing situation, will be an important factor in today's game.
Percy Mormon set wide to the left on this play. The handoff goes to fullback Michael Bryant up the middle, across the 20 into the 17-yard line. Taz Dixon, the free safety, finally got him down. So the Thundering Herd has moved the football from its own 20-yard line inside the 20 to the 17 of Georgia Southern.
Marshall this season has been successful in the first quarter, outscoring its opponents 45-21. Georgia Southern has not been a good team early in its last 5 ball games. 4 of them, the Eagles have trailed or been tied at halftime. They've been a strong second-half team.
Mike Bartram in at tight end for the Thundering Herd as Gregory drops the pass again, swings it to Ron Darby. And Darby barely gets back to the line of scrimmage before he's swarmed under on the far side of the field. Tim Brown was over there for the defensive play for the Eagles of Irk Russell. Very quick defensive unit for Georgia Southern. There's Giff Smith, number 95. He was also over there. Enoch checks back in as Percy Mormon goes out. Bartram is still in there, so Marshall with a double tight end set on this play. Ricardo Clark, number 6, wide to the left. Andre Motley, the leading receiver for the Thundering Herd, wide to the right. Gregory back to pass. Into the end zone, not quite. Into Bartram, the tight end, at the 4-yard line. I thought he was looking for Motley in the end zone. Mike West, the linebacker, knocked him out of bounds. First and goal for the Thundering Herd.
Georgia Southern is not getting any pressure on John Gregory. If you give him that much time, that's the end result. Bartram has his man beat and is wide open. Mike West just couldn't get to him, and Marshall is first and goal inside the 5.
Marshall with 3 setbacks, 2 tight ends, no wideouts. This is Darby. Darby cracks in for the touchdown, and the Thundering Herd has gone on top 6-0. Michael Berry had a shot at him but couldn't quite get him. Darby, the Southern Conference all-purpose running leader in a career.
Great block on that play, Bob, by number 44, Kerry Parks. As he kicked the Eagle right out of the way, and Darby with a clear shot into the end zone. Watch Parks, number 44, if we can see him. He's just in front and buries his man. Darby, he's the man you want inside the 5. Give the ball to him. He's got a nose for the end zone.
Dewey Klein tries the point, and it's not good. I didn't quite see, was that a bad snap or a bad hold, or did Dewey Klein, who is usually very reliable, miss the extra point?
It looked like.
We'll be back here in Statesboro, Georgia, for the Thundering Herds kickoff to the Georgia Southern Eagles in just a moment.
Call 1-900-USA-GIRL from anywhere in the United States. You never know what you might hear and experience. Remember, you must be 18 or older, but call me now at 1-900-USA-GIRL, 24 hours, 7 days. Remember, that's 1-900-USA-GIRL. It's only $3 a call, so call me now.
Marshall on top, 80-yard drive, and this is Gregory throwing to Mike Bartram. That set up the touchdown run by Ron Darby.
Bartram got his feet wet a little early in the game. The throw was behind him, couldn't grab a hold of it, got settled down a little bit. Gregory put one in the breadbasket and set him up for the touchdown.
Huey Klein kicks it off for the Thundering Herd. It comes up short and grabbed by an up man at the 18-yard line. That's Ernest Thompson. And Thompson brings it out to the 32. Tim Flaherty, who has made a career of special team play at Marshall. Junior from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, made the stop. So the Eagles go in possession for the first time this afternoon at their own 32-yard line. Now this is the flex bone, as Erk Russell likes to call it.
Marshall's scoring drive took 3 minutes and 14 seconds, 10 plays, 80 yards.
Raymond Gross, the quarterback. Fullback is Joe Ross. Triple option. The handoff goes to Ross. He's brought down at the 34-yard line of the Thundering Herd. A pickup of a couple. John Humphreys, the nose guard, made the tackle for the Thundering Herd. A beautiful football day. The Georgia Pines off in the distance. We're in Statesboro, Georgia, about 50 miles northeast of Savannah. 2nd and 8. The pitch goes through the the slot back, and he crosses the 40 up near the 42. Carl Miller was the ball carrier. Von Woodson knocked him out of bounds. You'll see as Georgia Southern sets up, Joe Ross is the fullback behind the quarterback. The two slot backs, they call them, Ernest Thompson and Carl Miller. It's a triple option offense, very similar to the wishbone. Although they set their backs a little differently, no tight end, they have two wideouts. Erk Russell calls it the flex bone. Gross rolling out and bringing it back inside, an opening, and he gets up near midfield. It looked as if he was rolling out to pass. That's the triple option. You can keep it, you can hand it off, or you can pitch it. Eric Gates, Jr. from Parkersburg, West Virginia, making the defensive stop for the Thundering Herd. The ball just shy of the 50-yard line.
Gross, a 6-foot junior with 175 pounds out of Hinesville, Georgia. That's the thing with the flex bone, Bob. You don't know if that was a design play or if the receivers were covered and he decided to tuck it in and run it. It's a very dangerous run.
Gross still has the ball. He keeps it, crosses the 50 to the 44-yard line of the Thundering Herd. Again, it's Eric Gates making the defensive play for the Thundering Herd of Marshall. Marshall on top of Georgia Southern by a score of 7-0. In case you joined us late, the Thundering Herd took the kickoff and drove 80 yards for the game's first score.
Here's the replay, and as you see, Gross hangs on to the ball, makes a little fake on the pitch, and keeps it and runs it upfield. Huffman had a shot at him, but just couldn't get to him. I think he got faked out a little bit by the quarterback.
1st and 10 for the Eagles at the 45-yard line of Marshall. There's Ross, the fullback, breaking loose. He runs past Woodson and finally out of bounds inside the Marshall 20-yard line. George Barlow, safety man from Los Angeles, California, making his first appearance for Marshall in the past 2 or 3 weeks. He's been out with an injury.
Russell says the flex bone allows him to stretch and deceive a defense. They like to stretch him horizontally and vertically. Once you start worrying a lot about the flex bone and the outside running, Bob, that's the danger. They can pop something open in the middle for a big game.
At the 18, 1st and 10. Again, this is Ross straight up the middle. and he's in for the touchdown. So Georgia Southern takes the kickoff at the 32-yard line, drives 68 yards for the tying touchdown. It is 6-6. Marshall missed the point after, and the Eagles can take the lead.
Once again, looks like the same play as he breaks into the middle, and nobody's there to stop him. A couple of nice moves. Not an outstanding run by Ross. He didn't really have to do a lot with it, Bob. Straight up the middle.
Great blocking by Sean Gainey and George Jones on the right side of that offensive line of Georgia Southern. Dallas to try the point after. It's good, and Georgia Southern has taken the lead 7-6 over the Thundering Herd. We'll be back with the Eagles kickoff here in Statesboro, Georgia, right after you look at this. It will be David Kuhl to kick it off for the Eagles on top 7-6. We've seen a lot of offense here in the first period.
They're on their feet here at Statesboro. The players on the field inciting the home fans to get things cooking a little bit.
Kick is coming shorter this time. Mormon takes it in at the 12-yard line. Percy out near the 30 where he's knocked down, and the Thundering Herd will put it in play at that point, 1st and 10. Trailing the Eagles of Georgia Southern 7-6. And I believe it's Mormon who's down on the ground.
Mormon, of course, has been bothered by injury this year, has been a spotty player. When he's been in, he's been very effective, but George Chomp hasn't been able to count on him. He's been hurt.
A high-powered offense for Georgia Southern. During the regular season through the first 10 games, Georgia Southern has racked up 410 yards offense average per ball game, scoring a lot of points against everybody. And the Thundering Herd defense being pressed to the limit here. That's Percy Mormon. Here he is from Danville, Virginia, sophomore, transferred to Marshall from Oregon State.
Looks like he's going to get rocked here, Bob, and doesn't turn an ankle, doesn't look like he turns a knee, just gets blasted on the return, gets shaken up a little bit. He's walking off a little gingerly on one of his legs, can't tell which one to be hurt.
Paul Sickley in on special teams, made the defensive play for Georgia Southern. Now Mormon has been out of action with a pulled hamstring, and perhaps from the way he's walking, it's re-pulled once again. There's Irk Russell. Irk Russell, one of the most successful coach in 1AA football over the past several years. So Clark and Motley are the wideouts for the Thundering Herd. I formation behind John Gregory, the senior quarterback from Port St. Lucie, Florida. Ron Darby breaks a couple of tackles, takes it wide, gets out across the 36. Ron, Marshall's all-time leading ground gainer. Taz Dixon, the free safety, and Tim Brown in on the tackle. He's from Orangeburg, South Carolina, which is about 90 miles from Statesboro, Georgia, just up the road. Mike Bartram in, Eric Enoch out at tight end, carrying the play for Coach George Chomp. This is Clark in motion. Oh, a big hit in the backfield by number 43. That is Darrell Hendricks, the middle linebacker, shooting the gap, and he really laid a blow on Michael Bryant.
Irk Russell said the Eagles would have to blitz to contain John Gregory and the Marshall passing attack. Hendricks up on the line, on the blitz, nobody touches him, and he greets Mr. Darby and welcomes him to the state of Georgia.
So now it's 3rd and 7 for the Thundering Herd, a possession down. 8:20 to go in the first quarter. A blitz on Gregory, and he gets rid of it. Out to the 43-yard line, Vince Bodie, a wideout from Leisure, Florida, a senior. He made the catch.
That was a nifty little play, Bob. Look at this. As Hendricks comes blasting through again, nobody touches him. He's in Gregory's face. Gregory, a couple of guys hit him, but he manages to get the ball out. Sort of a gee, I hope you catch it pass, and the receiver was right there.
Vincent Bodie, fifth-year senior from Florida. Anthony Albee, in at fullback for Marshall. He replaces Michael Bryant. Split backs behind John Gregory. Motley wide to the left. Gregory back to pass. Swings it out to Darby and off his hands, incomplete. This time it was Steve Buceletti and Pat Parr putting pressure on John Gregory. Buceletti is a sophomore from Gainesville, and Parr is also a sophomore. He's from West Point, Georgia.
John got a little anxious there. He saw him in his face. Of course, that's how the screen is designed, to let the guys penetrate very quickly. He just hurried his throw a little bit. It would have been a very tough catch for Darby, thrown a little high.
Motley goes wide to the right, Clark to the left. 2nd and 10, ball at Marshall's 43-yard line. Darby the lone setback. Giving the blitz look, they hand to Darby, breaks up the middle, and out to midfield. Randall Boone making the tackle for the Eagles.
It was Hendricks again, Bob, as he faked the stunt, backed up a step. After the snap, he came rushing in again. Marshall manages to catch. Watch this. Marshall catches him in the blitz. Darby finds a little seam, breaks it up the middle for a nice gain. 704 yards rushing on the season before today's contest. Of course, the big week for Ron last week has became the Southern Conference all-time career leader in all-purpose running yards with 55-70.
Vince Bodie brings the play in. He is the wide out on the right side. Motley is on the left. Gregory fires to Motley, and he is immediately knocked down by Rodney Oglesby.
Just a first down pass, Bob. Chipping away at them when they get a first down situation where they can mix it up and use something to go deep, maybe. George Chalmp likes this situation inside of his opponent's 50-yard line. 1st and 10. Don't know what's going to happen up next. Don't be surprised if he goes deep.
6:50 to go in the first quarter. Georgia Southern 7, Marshall 6. Bodie is out and Bartram is out. Marshall did have 2 tight ends in on the last play, and John Gregory calls a timeout. He's going over to talk with Coach George Chalmp and discuss a little strategy at this point. Timeout on the field. 6:41 to go in the first quarter. Georgia Southern leading 7-6. I feel okay. How do you think it's going? Well, neither will I. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's going all right. The crowd, I would say, as Kyle, it is overflow, wouldn't you say? 21? Well, 18, I thought, was capacity. Yeah. Okay, about 21. Okay, Kyle says about 21,000. All set to go. Gregory back out in the huddle. The Thundering Herd breaks out. 1st and 10. Ball at the Georgia Southern 45-yard line. Pitch comes to Darby, short side. And he drills into near the 40-yard line. Steve Buceletti on the defensive play for Georgia Southern. Last week against Western Carolina, Ron Darby, who's from Orangeburg, South Carolina, set the all-time Southern Conference record all-purpose running. And he knocked off the record held by a pretty fair country running back. John Settle, who played at Appalachian State, is now the premier running back with the Atlanta Falcons. This is Enoch, the tight end, shifting to the right side. In motion, Ricardo Clark. Gregory looking downfield. He unloads it for Clark, who does not hold it at the 10-yard line. And Gregory took a hit on that one. He did not see the ball go off Clark's hands. He stood in there. He threw what looked to be a good pass to an open receiver, but they did not quite hook up, Kenny.
Well, Ricardo Clark streaking down the sidelines, did a little fake move to the inside. Gregory waited, and then throws it. Clark, as you see, has 3 steps on the defender. It was thrown behind him to the reverse side, but no excuse for dropping that one. Clark maybe hit him in a bad place, Bob.
Darby the lone setback, 2 tight ends and 2 wideouts for the Thundering Herd as Gregory drops the pass once again. And he completes it to Mike Bartram down inside the 30 to about the 26-yard line. Taz Dixon made the tackle. Mike Bartram, a freshman from Pomeroy, Ohio, 6'4", 225, seeing a lot of playing time today.
The tight ends will be critical to this offense if they're going to play a ball control type game. Gregory dropping back, throwing it right at you. Bartram, just a little square out and go pattern, about 7 yards up the field in front of the defense, and it's tough to stop that if you're going to play off of the line.
Vince Bodie is in at a wide receiver. He's set out on the right, and Motley on the left. Gregory swings it to Darby, and once again, Darby cannot hold it. An incomplete pass. That ball was almost thrown backwards. Pat Parr, a sophomore from West Point, had a lot of pressure on John Gregory that time. Twice they've tried that play, and neither time has Darby been able to hold the football.
Both times it's been a tough pass that I think's been the culprit. Not an impossible pass to catch, but both times it's been up above shoulder pad level, and Darby hasn't been able to hang on to it.
Here's some scores from in the East. Navy leading Delaware 3-0 in the first period. Massachusetts 7, New Hampshire 0. Holy Cross 7-6 over Bucknell, and Connecticut in front of Rhode Island 7-0. Gregory to pass once again. He fires it inside the 25, and the receiver's driven way back. He'll get to the 23-yard line on his forward progress. That's Michael Bryant, the fullback, number 22. He's from Atlanta, Georgia. Michael Berry and Darrell Hendricks, a couple of linebackers in on the defensive play.
Georgia Southern is showing a lot of respect for the Marshall passing attack, maybe too much respect. They're backing off about 7 to 10 yards off of the receivers, and Chalp is dropping his tight ends, fullbacks, backs out of the backfield in the middle coverage. There's nobody there.
Double tight end, 1 setback. That's Ron Darby. Gregory to pass once again. And it is almost intercepted by Randall Boone. He had good coverage on Andre Motley. Boone has 5 interceptions this season, the leading interceptor on the Georgia Southern Ball Club. Auburn leading Georgia 10-0. That game's in the second period. Georgia Tech 22, Wake Forest nothing at halftime. Duke 24, North Carolina nothing in the second period. And here's a surprise, Minnesota 7-0 over Michigan. This is Dewey Klein attempting the field goal. It is good. Marshall has taken the lead once again, 9-7. Dewey Klein.
Looks like a 40-yard attempt, Bob. The ball was spotted at the 30. Marshall had it on the 23 on a 4th and 6, and Klein splits the uprights.
We'll be back with Marshall's kickoff in just a moment.
What's a good value in Southeast Georgia?
Chevrolet value.
All new 1990 Cavalier. A more powerful engine, more standard features, more value. Compare at your Southeast Georgia Chevy dealer. The more powerful 1990 Cavalier is cheaper than last year's Toyota and Honda comparable models by over $1,000. Cavalier's winning at your Southeast Georgia Chevy dealer.
How about them Chevy cars?
For Georgia Southern to give up some points in the first half.
Not at all. They've been a second half team, at least lately. Here's a look at the scoring drive. 12 plays, 40 yards. It was a 30-yard field goal by Klein. I was incorrect there a moment ago, but Dewey's not having a bad season this year. 12 for 16 now.
Joe Ross comes out near the 39-yard line of the Thundering Herd.
Tackle by number 43, Matt Downey.
Matt Downey and John Humphreys in on the tackle. Downey, the sophomore from a junior from St. Albans, West Virginia. This is Joe Ross, 6'1", 207-pound junior. Coming into this game, 1,074 yards rushing, and that is a Georgia Southern record. Gross keeps it on this play, goes around the left side. Rory Fitzpatrick knocks him down at the 41-yard line.
Gross does a little bit of everything well. He's passed coming into the game for 841 yards. He's rushed for 731 yards. He scored 4 touchdowns rushing. He's passed for 4 more. So he's pretty much a threat to either put it up in the air or tuck it and go. That's what causes problems. You just don't know what this guy's going to do, and he's so talented. He does all of it pretty well. This is pretty much a straight option play. Gross cuts it up, keeps his feet, and it's a nice gain.
3rd and 3 for Georgia Southern, and Joe Ross dives out near the 34-yard line, very close to the first down. They may have to measure this one. We'll watch the spot. They did not make it. Georgia Southern comes up short. Dan Woolridge, the referee, signals about 1.5 foot, and we'll have the first punt of the day. Rory Fitzpatrick making the stop for Marshall. Fitzpatrick, a senior from Akron, Ohio.
They're going for it. They're going for it, Bob. They've elected to go for it.
Not the first punt of the day. They give it to their short yardage man, Ernest Thompson, and he makes the first down. So Irk Russell taking a chance early. A lot of confidence in that defense.
And why not? Thompson,
or in the offense, I should say.
A powerful short yardage runner. He scored 14 touchdowns this year. He set a school record last year with 19 TDs. They joke about it when he gets down inside the 5. It's to Thompson and over the top. They say the typist here who does the play-by-play for Georgia Southern's got that pretty much memorized into the typewriter.
Well, he had his goal line offense in there. Thompson runs out of that deep spot. Joe Ross was out. The 2 wide receivers were out. Two minutes, 41 seconds remaining in the first period. Marshall 9, Georgia Southern 7. The Eagles of Irk Russell in possession. Having a little discussion with a penalty being stepped off against the Thundering Herd. We'll watch Dan Woolridge.
Illegal participation against the Thundering Herd.
12 men on the field. Illegal participation against Marshall. So that cost the Thundering Herd a few yards. The ball down at the 39-yard line of Marshall. The flex ball with Raymond Gross running it, number 11. He gives it to Ross, gaping hole up the middle. Ross breaks a tackle, eludes a couple of men, and in near the 10-yard line before he's finally driven out of bounds. Joe Ross knocked out by Tim Mitchell. And the Marshall defense in the middle just absolutely cannot contain Joe Ross.
Once Ross breaks at the outside, he's got a nice little burst of speed. He gets a great block downfield from Carl Miller. Here's a look at the play. This is the same play that they scored the touchdown on. Had a big gain on it on the first drive. Now watch Miller. He's leading him. Nice block. Springs him for another 10, 15 yards or so before he's finally driven down.
Ball just outside the 10-yard line. It's Ross again. The ball is loose, and I think Raymond Gross was the man who fell upon it for Georgia Southern. Be a pickup of a yard, so it'll be 2nd and 9. And now one of the wide receivers comes out. Terrence Sorrell, one wide out. That's Donnie Allen.
They're going to call it 2nd and 8, Bob, from the 9.
Gross with the ball, running wide to the left. And he dives in for the touchdown, and Georgia Southern has retaken the lead at 13-9. Big play, the run by Joe Ross, or the short run by Joe Ross on 4th and about a foot inside his own territory. Coach Irk Russell went for it.
Now watch this. He's going to break to the outside, get a nice block at the end zone by Donnie Allen. Allen with a nice block springs him into the end zone. Raymond Gross for the touchdown. Georgia Southern regains the lead.
Mike Dallas will try for the extra point. It's up and good, and it's a 14-9 ball game. Georgia Southern leading the Marshall Thundering Herd. Neither team has been able to stop the other from scoring. Marshall had to settle for a field goal in its second possession. Georgia Southern has had the ball twice and scored twice. There's Raymond Gross. He's the junior quarterback. He replaced Tracy Ham, All-American, who has had an outstanding career in the Canadian Football League with the Edmonton Eagles. Here you can look at it again. Sean Gainey gets a good block on this play also.
Gainey is the man who springs him first to allow him to get outside, but then look at the block that Allen pulls. There's Gainey's block. Allen knocks his man out of the way. Gross gets into the end zone. This type of ball game is not good for the Marshall Thundering Herd. Not good at all. I mean, high-scoring games are entertaining and a lot of fun, but George Chauf's main concern was somehow stopping that flex point. He says, we can score on anybody in the country. We've got to be able to stop Georgia Southern. Thus far on the Eagles' first 2 drives, Marshall hasn't come close to stopping Georgia Southern. They've broken big plays in a lot of ways. Up the middle, outside, they've gotten short yardage when they've needed it. Irk Russell's team doing exactly what it wants to do on the field. That doesn't bode well for the green and white.
Kerry Parks, number 44, junior from Okeechobee, Florida. The middleman standing at the 5-yard line for the Thundering Herd as David Kuhl gets ready to kick it off for the Eagles. Parks takes it in at the goal line. And really is smacked hard before he gets to the 15. He was looking for an opening up the middle and didn't find it. So Marshall, deep in its own territory, will put the ball in play, trailing 14-9.
It'll be 1st and 10 from the 14 for Marshall. George Chauf needs to get a drive out of his squad to keep pace with Georgia Southern. You don't want to be 3 and out here with the home crowd and the momentum of just scoring a touchdown. Would be bad news for the Herd.
Well, we're going to have a penalty stepped off. No, we're going to kick this one over. Georgia Southern was offside, and the penalty was on the kickoff. So the Eagles will have to kick it off again. There's George Chauf in his 4th year as head coach of the Thundering Herd. Coached at Indiana University of Pennsylvania prior to that, and before that was an assistant with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the National Football League, and prior to that for 11 years coached under Woody Hayes at Ohio State.
It is not taking Georgia Southern long to score on their last scoring drive. 3 minutes to get it into the end zone. 23 points on the board in the first 10.5 minutes of football. That's not too shabby.
We could be here until dark. So David Kuhl will kick it off from the 30. Kerry Parks standing at the 10. He's flanked by Orlando Hatchett and Ron Darby. Parks going back, and Hatchett takes it in at the 5. And he gets across the 20 to about the 22-yard line. Bart Hughes, senior from Duluth, Georgia, making the tackle in on special teams. So trailing 14-9, Marshall will put it in play, 1st and 10 from its own 22-yard line.
Although, there's a look at Irk Russell, who has gained, as I said in the opening, not quite legendary status here, but he came in from the University of Georgia and has done miraculous things with this Georgia Southern program.
I formation behind John Gregory, the quarterback. Gregory to pass, fires it out quick, over the 30 to about the 33-yard line.
Gregory's pass complete.
Andre Motley, the leading receiver for the Thundering Herd, making the catch. Taz Dixon on the tackle, along with Rodney Ogletree.
10-yard gain on the play and a little slant in post pattern. Just ran about 5 to 7 yards in, makes the catch. Boom, quick first down, gets you out of the hole, gets you over the 30-yard line. Andre Motley, a 6-foot junior, 178-pound split end. He's been an important part in the Marshall Thundering Herd offensive machine this year. Of course, they've had some big receiving shoes to fill with Mike Barber leaving due to graduation.
1st and 10, Marshall are inside a minute of the first quarter. Handoff is to Darby, and there's nowhere to go.
27 Darby on the carry to the 36-yard line. Tackled by 90 Parr. 43 Hendricks.
Pat Parr and Darrell Hendricks on the stop for Georgia Southern. That will be a 2-yard gain, 2nd and 8.
Hendricks has been busy in the middle.
Yes, he
Not only
has.
stunning quite a bit, but he's also, instead of stunning and trying to penetrate into the backfield, he's just moving up to this line of scrimmage and plugging up a lot of holes.
Gregory takes the handoff, rolls out, decides to keep it. Gets a good block and out across midfield. John Gregory, not the mobilest of quarterbacks. Finally, Darrell Hendricks got him out of bounds, but that was a fine run by John Gregory.
Michael Berry will look at the films of this ball game, and he'll say, how did I miss this guy? Watch Gregory with a nice move. Looks like a little sandlot ball going on. Gregory, of course, they respect his arm. Now watch Berry. Berry slips, but Gregory gets by him, manages to pick up another 10 yards or so before he steps out of bounds. Nice run by John Gregory.
A remarkable young man, John Gregory. He has overcome great adversity throughout his college career. This is Michael Blank. Tries to slip outside, gets maybe a yard.
The knock on John has been that he hasn't been a mobile quarterback, that he hasn't been able to do things. They forget, you know, he's an athlete. Due to the injuries, of course, that slowed him down a little bit.
And that brings to an end the opening period here at Georgia Southern, with the Eagles leading the Thundering Herd 14-9. Marshall will have it near midfield when we come back to start the second quarter. Just black.
Big Boston Stadium, welcome to our special guest today, Representative Ron Fennell, Representative Terry Coleman, and John Garvey.
Your job sometimes make you blue? Don't worry. Call the Fun Party line.
900-999-5372.
Be happy. Call now.
$2 for the first minute, 95 cents for each additional minute.
They got many guys and ladies just waiting to talk to you. So at work or play, don't worry. Be happy.
Call now, 900-999-5372.
If you minor league baseball in the 4 years in the Los Angeles Dodgers organization before going to college at Southeast Louisiana, played there 1 year. That school dropped football, came to Marshall 3 years ago, earned the starting quarterback job, injured his knee in the 4th game against Eastern Kentucky. Tony Peterson took over, had quarterback job for the next year and a half. John then came back. He was the starting quarterback in spring practice. I'll tell you more about him. No setbacks behind Gregory. And he keeps it. There's a flag. Gregory has nowhere to go. He was stricken with appendicitis, missed all of spring practice, and then injured in a motorcycle accident, broke his ankle in June.
There were fears he'd never walk again.
That's right, at the time.
They weren't even talking about football. They were talking about this guy may not be able to walk normally again, but look at, he's come back, and it's an outstanding year.
Dead ball foul, legal procedure.
Broke that ankle in June, but in September he was the opening quarterback for the Thundering Herd. That was a year ago against Morehead State University. Severely hampered all year by that gimpy leg. A 5-yard penalty on the Thundering Herd for illegal procedure. Now this season he has been much more mobile than a year ago. And he is the Southern Conference leader in touchdown passes thrown with 50 and total yards passing coming into this game, 6,709.
Had a little movement on the offensive line. That's where the penalty came from. Marshall looking at a 3rd down and 10.
So Gregory to pass. He fires it, and it is complete to Mike Bartram. No, incomplete. He did not. Yes, complete and out of bounds.
Catch.
I thought he might have been juggling that ball when he went out.
Irk not pleased with the call. He's speaking to some of the guys in black and white on the sidelines.
I think Irk felt he did not have complete possession.
Of course Irk felt that. Now,
take a look.
At it. Yeah, he pulls it in. Yes, it was an exaggerated motion, pulling it in to show the official. That might be why Irk thought he was out of bounds.
There are the first quarter statistics. Here's a reverse to Ricardo Clark. Blockers out in front of him, and he's into the 21-yard line. Clark has run that play about 4 times this year and been very successful. Randall Boone making the stop.
Ricardo Clark
carried the ball 5 times and gained 60 yards. Here you look at it again. Darby faking the take from Gregory, and then Gregory handing it off to Clark coming around. The ball is marked at the 22. First and 10 for the Thundering Herd, trailing 14-9. The I formation. Bryant and Darby behind John Gregory. Gregory to pass. He rolls out. Fires it over the middle, complete to Eric Enoch, and Enoch storms in for the touchdown. Randall Boone had a shot at him and couldn't get him. And Bart Hughes also failed to make the tackle. So Marshall has regained the lead.
Sloppy tackling.
Or fine running.
Lock up. Exactly.
On which side of the ball you line up on.
Great effort by Enoch. Don't get me wrong. But,
Bobby Lutz, the long snapper. The holder is Scott Crouch. Dewey Klein to try the point, but Marshall has called a timeout. So we have timeout on the field. As you look at Eric Enoch in the end zone, Marshall has just taken a 15-14 lead. Marshall will go for the PAT when we return. Marshall set to go for the extra point and has decided to go for 2.
Why not? You're up 15-14. 1 point's not going to help you a whole lot. Get this one, and that means Georgia Southern have to have a field goal of a tie and not go ahead.
Clark in motion. Gregory to pass. And it is complete to Andre Motley. A 2-point conversion.
Gregory took a little shot at the end of that, but he gets up, pumping the air with his fist. Don't think he felt it too much. Marshall's on top 17-14.
13 minutes, 14 seconds to go in the second period. And Marshall will be kicking it off to Georgia Southern when we come back to Statesboro. Like I've really got a handle on it.
I feel like I'm saying stuff like, oh, gee, Bob, you're right. I'm searching. I am too. I'm just not. Well. Yeah, but I don't normally feel like it. Normally I feel. Anytime you're the first time, like I say, I haven't done a game in 2 years.
This is not my usual French dinner wine.
Oh, John, you're such a snob. Try this. Well, it's Habersham, a Georgia wine.
Discover the award-winning world-class wines produced and bottled right here in Georgia. Visit our tasting rooms at Lenox Square, Atlanta, the Alpine Outlet Mall in Helen, and the Habersham Winery in Baldwin. Habersham.
When you shop for wine, keep Georgia on your mind.
Habersham.
It's here, now on video cassette. Batman. Call toll-free and we'll send this Batman video to your door for just $19.99 plus shipping and handling.
What are you?
Batman.
Does he get those wonderful toys? Will they get a load of me?
Batman on video cassette for just $19.99. Call now and this Batman pin is yours free.
At about Georgia Southern, the Eagles have not been scored upon in the third period this entire season. Have outscored the opposition 83-0.
I was going to talk about that a little bit later. Marshall University, high-powered, potent offense. Scoring drive, 8 plays, 77 yards, 316, the 22-yard pass from Gregory to Enoch. It's going to be after intermission. That'll be the test of the key, whether Marshall can stay in this game.
Joe Ross right up the gut, breaks a couple of tackles out to the 33-yard line. Ross already with the record for most yards gained in a single season is adding to it. Eric Gates finally made the stop.
Georgia Southern is 15-1 when Ross gets more than 100 yards rushing. He's the key to stopping the flex bone. Marshall's doing some different things defensively. 3 cornerbacks back and an extra guy up on the line, but they haven't stopped him yet.
They stop him this time. Maybe a gain of 1 or 2. Mark Mason, number 45, is in the defensive alignment for the Thundering Herd.
Tackle by number 45.
And it was Mason who made the stop on that play. Mason, a transfer from Salem College in West Virginia, when that school dropped football. The wideouts are Donnie Allen and Terrence Sorrell. They haven't seen much action as far as passes so far. Still with the ball is Gross, and he's down at the 39-yard line. A flag goes down. It will be a late hit charged against the Thundering Herd. Matt Downey made the initial contact, and Garrett Thomas came in a tad. They'll check it.
Check that. It's not a late hit. They're going to call clipping against Georgia Southern. Here's the play. This is what makes Gross so good. He keeps his head about him. When white jerseys are all over him, he keeps the ball, pumps fakes, gains a couple yards, but it's all going to be for naught. They're going to bring it back.
He threw the flag right by the ball carrier as Thomas hit him, and I thought it was going to be against Marshall.
That's what the crowd thought, obviously. The folks here at Glenn Bryant Field at Paulson Stadium, when that flag went down, about 10,000 of them jumped up, deriding the Marshall defense for a late hit, but that wasn't the case.
Mason's out, and number 90 is back in. That's John Humphrey. So he pulled his middle guard and put in an extra linebacker.
Here's the clip right here.
Clip was on number 12.
It was just on. It was on the right side of your screen. The clip on number 12, Ernest Thompson. He's sealing off the backside, and he sealed off the backside from the rear. You're not allowed to do that.
Gross drops back to pass. Being pressured, gets away from one man. Now he's running with it across the 30, 35, and down at the 37 or 8-yard line. That was a pass play. Eric Gates finally made the tackle. Couldn't find anybody open and just decided to take off with it. A very elusive young man is Raymond Gross. Erk Russell was asked to compare Raymond Gross with Tracy Ham, the All-American who is now up in Canada playing with Edmonton. He said it would be unfair to do so. A very wise man is Erk Russell. You do not draw comparisons.
Tim Flaherty, I believe, had a shot at him in the backfield. Gross, too elusive for him. Got a big gainer out of it. It's 3rd and about 5.
Marshall with 3 down linemen. This is Gross. He still has it. And he fights his way across the 40 to the 41. Flaherty in on the stop along with Mark Blake. Blake is another of the transfers from Salem College. Blake and Mason came down when that school dropped football to play for the Thundering Herd. We'll have a measurement here.
Calling the chains over to see if he's gained the first down. Smart running by Gross on that play. He was held up by his own man, yet he kept driving forward because he knew where the yard markers were on that one. Knew he had to get up to about the 43-yard line to get the first and bring it over to see if he made it.
The athletic director here at Georgia Southern is Dr. David Wagner, known to people around Athens as Bucky. Bucky was the quarterback on the Mid-America Conference champion football team of 1960. We'll have him on here at halftime. And Tim Flaherty and Tim Mitchell signaled that the Eagles are a little bit short. The last time they were this short, Erk Russell went for it. They made the first down and continued to drive on for the touchdown.
With this offense, the way Erk Russell has it set up, about 2 feet is not difficult to get. I mean, they haven't been stopped for a loss, I don't think, all day long. Look for him to go for it here.
Marshall has come in with its goal line defense. Phil Ratliff, freshman from Louisa, is in there in the interior line.
If Marshall stops him here, it's a great break for the Thundering Herd. However, when you lose a 4th down situation like this and the opposing team gets the first down, it's sort of demoralizing on defense.
Well, they're just lined up, and we'll see who is the strongest right here. And it's Thompson, the short yardage man, and he makes the first down. He is a tough inside runner. A senior, 222 pounds, 3-year letterman.
Bread and butter guy for short yardage situations. Marshall University shouldn't feel bad not being able to stop him there. Few people have. As I said, 14 touchdowns this year. Set a school record with 19 last year. Goes right over the top and just gets, what, just a yard or two, and that's all he needed, and it's 1st and 10.
Paul Richard, also a freshman from down in Cincinnati, was in that short yardage situation. Now out on defense for Marshall as everybody lines up normally. The handoff goes to Joe Ross. And here he goes down to the Thundering Herd 40.
Same thing, quick trap right up the middle. Quick burst of speed, 10, 12-yard gain, 1st and 10. Marshall has yet to solve the riddle of stopping Ross.
10.5 minutes to go in the first half. 17-14. Marshall on top. 1st and 10 for Georgia Southern at the Thundering Herd 41-yard line. The flex bone. The set formation for the Eagles. The pitch goes to a man going deep, and he's dragged down into the backfield. This is Darryl Hopkins, a backup slot back who was in, number 25, and he lost a few yards on that one. Mike Mason.
Mike Mason comes through and gets him for a loss.
Mike Mason. So that'll make it 2nd and 17. Here you see it again. That's Mason.
Mason gets a handful of Eagle, and he doesn't let go. Brings him down. It's a 7-yard loss on the play. Good effort by him. That's a tough tackle. Grab somebody by the jersey. Going to have real strong hands to do that. And Hopkins, of course, not wanting to go down, but Mason was the better man in that situation.
Florida leading the Kentucky Wildcats 7-0 in the first period. Gross rolling out. Now he flips it inside. The ball is fumbled. No, it will be a forward pass. Although he pitched it underhand, that's a forward pass. And Carl Miller failed to hold it. That'll bring up a 3rd and 17. Now this is the first time Georgia Southern has been faced with a 3rd and long situation.
It may force them to pass. They don't like to do that, obviously. They run the ball usually about 80% of the time. It's been more than that today, but when you've been successful running the ball as Georgia Southern, why put it in the air?
Raymond Gross calls timeout on the field. He wants to talk to Coach Irk Russell and discuss this situation. Mississippi and Tennessee tied 14-14 in the second period. Ohio State 7, Wisconsin 3 in the first. And we'll be back here in Statesboro, Georgia in just a moment. You're looking at the Georgia Pines just outside of Paulson Stadium in Statesboro, Georgia. 21,000 thereabouts on hand here for today's ball game. The regular season finale for both these clubs. Georgia Southern, the top-ranked team in 1AA in the country, assured of a berth in the playoffs. Marshall would have to knock them off in order to get.
Joe Ross, 10 rushes, 109 yards already with 9 minutes and 27 seconds to go in the first half.
To get into the playoffs. As Gross goes back to pass, Downey is after him. He gets away. Downey after him again, and finally Downey makes the tackle back at the 45-yard line. Good coverage in the secondary for the Thundering Herd as Raymond Gross could find nobody to throw the ball.
Loss of about 7 yards on the play, and that's what happens more times than not when a running team is forced into a 3rd and long situation and needs to pass. Downey, great defense. He keeps his position. Needs to get by 2 or 3 Eagles to even get to Gross. Where Gross wasn't able to get away that time.
Terry Harvin to punt, and Ricardo Clark back to receive. Nice one. Clark fair catches it at the 13-yard line, and the Thundering Herd leading 17-14 will put it in play from that point. First punt of the day. We've seen a lot of offense, 8:40 to go in the first half, and as you pointed out, Kenny, already Joe Ross over 100 yards.
Said it a little while ago, Georgia Southern 15-1 when Ross gains more than 100 yards on the day, and unless he gets stuffed for a couple of losses and doesn't gain any more today, that's happened, so that's a good omen for the Eagles.
Your big running back has gained 109 yards in less than a quarter and a half, and still you're behind by 3. This is a wide open football game, friends. John Gregory with Ron Darby, the set back in behind him. Gregory to pass.
He's looking deep.
Darby, and he grabs it at the 40, knocked down at the 45-yard line. Coming out of the backfield, wide open in the middle. Randall Boone made the tackle. A pickup of 31 yards for the Thundering Herd. Darby has had 29 receptions this season already coming in.
Darby straight out of the backfield. Nobody pays any attention to him, and they'll find out here in Georgia, as they know elsewhere. You must pay attention to Ron Darby wherever he is on the field.
Kerry Parks replaces Darby at tailback for the Thundering Herd. Number 44. Michael Bryant, the up back. Ball is kicked around and loose.
Second down, Marshall's ball.
Marshall recovered. The crowd really responding as if Georgia Southern had it, but the official, I'm not sure what happened on that play.
Was that a snap to the halfback?
It looked as if it was snapped directly to him. We'll have to check that.
Got a man down.
That's Parks. He's probably just wondering what happened on that play. His first
Here we go. Here we go. I think it just went right through Gregory's hands.
I think you're right.
Like
he just didn't handle the snap.
Here we go.
It flew off right up past his shoulder, and Bryant just happened to pick it off.
Maybe Steve Jolie thought they were out of the shotgun that time and was looking for somebody deep in the backfield.
2nd and 12, a 2-yard loss. This is Darby back in and in motion as Gregory drops the pass. Andre Motley didn't hold it at the 49-yard line. Pat Parr had great pressure on Darby that time, or on Gregory that time, and knocked him down. But Ron Darby should have caught that ball.
Well, Motley.
Was it Motley? Motley, I beg your pardon.
Andre Motley should have caught the ball. The mistake he made, Bobby, was so wide open, and he saw nobody in front of him, nobody to his right as he got ready to turn upfield. Started running before he had the ball. And that is an old bugaboo and will catch you when you least expect it.
Mike Bartram and Ricardo Clark into the Marshall lineup, tight end, wide out, respectively. Motley, the Herd's leading receiver, goes off to the left, and Clark is set up on the right. Split backs behind Gregory, a 3rd and 12. Great pressure on John. He throws it off, intercepted by Taz Dixon, and he's going all the way.
Taz Dixon is now the all-time career interception leader for Georgia Southern with that one.
Tim Brown and Darrell Hendricks applying great pressure to on John Gregory. He unloaded the football and didn't have a lot of mustard on it. Taz Dixon made the interception, rambled in for the score. Look at it one more time.
Just a middle screen they're trying to set up with Gregory dropping back, looking across the middle.
I'm not sure who he intended that for. Perhaps Darby was in there. And this is Taz Dixon. Glances over his shoulder at the 15-yard line and lopes into the end zone.
Looked like the closest Marshall player was right tackle Greg Atkins on that play, and I don't think he was eligible to catch
Mike
the ball.
Dowis for the point after. It's good, and it's 21-17 as Georgia Southern has taken the lead once again. And the Eagles will be kicking off to the Thundering Herd when we come back to Statesboro. The deep man at the 5-yard line, flanked by Ron Darby and Orlando Hatchett. Percy Mormon, who was deep on kickoffs at the outset, injured on a kickoff and has not been back. Into the wind this time, and it's taken in at the 12-yard line by Orlando Hatchett. A long way across field, but a flag goes down from way back as he goes down at the 22-yard line. The official who threw that flag threw it from about 20 yards away. Clipping, says Dan Woolridge, against the Thundering Herd. So that will set the ball back to about the 11-yard line. Erk Russell does not look like he is overly thrilled with the turn of events so far.
I think he keeps that look on his face no matter what the score is.
And George Chomp looking very pensive right now. His ball club has put 17 points on the board in less than a quarter and a half, and he's trailing.
Here's a look at the... Here's Taz Dixon, the man who returned the interception for a touchdown. He's the only player in Georgia Southern history to return 3 pass interceptions for a TD. He did it last week against UT Chattanooga. He's also the career interception leader for Georgia Southern. He now has 12. The scoring drive, one play. Took about 5 seconds for Taz to run that 41 yards. The Eagles lead.
1st and 10 Marshall at the 10, and Ron Darby goes down at the 7, loss of 3.
Better tackling that time, Bob, by Georgia Southern.
Gift Smith, the junior from Mapleton, Georgia, making the stop.
Gift kept Darby busy on that one. Didn't actually knock him down, but did give him something to do rather than cut up field, and bounced off of him. Darby lost his footing.
6:25 to go in the second period. As Gregory drops to the end zone. Decides to run out and is swarmed at the 5-yard line. Loss of a couple. Good coverage in the secondary that time by Georgia Southern. Steve Bussaletti making the tackle. So Marshall in 2 plays has lost 5 yards. 3rd and 15 at its own 5-yard line for the Thundering Herd. And that interception seemed to have fired up the defensive unit of the Eagles.
John Gregory, of course, had a very bad stretch at Appalachian State right after halftime. Came out through an interception, from another interception, had trouble hanging on to the ball. He doesn't need to get into that situation here against Georgia Southern at home.
Gregory's going to pass, and he just unloads it out over the line into an open area. He had great heat that time. Giff Smith was in there, and Marshall will have to punt.
Everett Sharp came on the blitz, and nobody picked him up, and Gregory just threw it to avoid the safety. He would have been blasted in the end zone if he had gotten rid of that ball.
J.R. McVicker to punt it from his own end line, deep in the end zone. Georgia Southern's
like
coming after it. He gets it away.
Good punt.
Taken in at the 49-yard line. And down to the Marshall 46. It was Rodney Oglesby, the deep man, receiving that punt.
Fumbled the ball out of bounds, but Marshall could not jump on it and gain possession.
Tim Mitchell and Tim Bernardi making the tackle for Marshall. Mississippi and Tennessee tied 14-14 in the second period. North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, 7-0, stayed on top, that in the first period. Duke in front of North Carolina, 27-0 at halftime, and Auburn leading Georgia 17-0 in the second period. So at the 47, 1st and 10 for the Eagles. Great field possession. Leading 21-17 over Marshall. This is Joe Ross. Gets a couple.
The way these guys have been moving the ball, 5 minutes and 10 seconds is an eternity. That's enough time for a couple of scores.
Mark Blake and Vaughn Woodson on the tackle for Marshall. Mason in.
Mark Mason.
Mark Mason.
We'll clear it up. It's Mark Mason out of Charleston
John Humphrey
High School.
out for Marshall. 2nd and 8 for the Eagles at the Thundering Herd 45. Gross going back to pass. Downfield, out of bounds, incomplete. He intended that for Donnie Allen. The defensive coverage by Vaughn Woodson for Marshall. Woodson, the senior from Oak Hill, West Virginia.
Woodson was there, but the sideline had a much bigger role in that pass. Gross just threw it out of bounds. Wasn't even close to being able to be caught.
That stops the clock with 4:38 to go in the second quarter.
They've had a lot to cheer about here at Paulson Stadium since opening it in 1984. 30-1 Burke Russell is on his home service. Only loss here to Middle Tennessee State, November of 1985.
Again, Gross rolls out looking to pass, but he decides to keep it. Breaks 2 or 3 tackles and gets down to the 41-yard line. Eric Gates on the stop for the Thundering Herd. And we're going to have another Terry Harvin punt.
The defense is perhaps solving the riddle of the offense.
Maybe the offense is just getting tired out there running up and down the field. Both offenses. William and Mary 15-0 over Richmond. That's in the second period. Morehead State leading Eastern Kentucky 3-0 in the second period. Clark makes a fair catch, and a flag goes down. I don't think
give him enough room.
He gave him enough room. He was right up against him. You have to give him some room to catch the football. That's going to cost the Eagles a couple of yards.
I'll tell you who caught the football. It was Georgia Southern. Watch this. Watch him catch the football and bring it down. Waving for the fair catch. And a Georgia Southern player catches the football. You can't do that, guys.
Well, the crowd not overly impressed with that call by Dan Woolridge.
Ricardo Clark didn't have see him go down to one knee like, what in the world is this?
Well, Coach Russell will probably have a word or two of explanation to that youngster on the special teams.
Words of wisdom, I believe. He'll call him over and say, son, you did a bad thing.
So after an exchange of punts, Marshall picked up 19 yards at its own 5 when the Thundering Herd punted, and then gets it back at about the 24. Marshall with the 5-yard penalty.
Thundering Herd could have been in a very, very bad situation with more than 5 minutes to go in the half. You know, you throw an interception, Dixon runs it back for a touchdown, boom, you're down 21-17, you come in 3 and out, you punt, Georgia Southern gets it near midfield, great field position. Well, if they come down and score, then all of a sudden, instead of being up 17-14, you're down 28-17. That hasn't happened yet, and that's fortunate for Marshall. They could have been looking at some disastrous consequences from their 3 and out.
Well, they finally to settle on the 24-yard line to put the ball in play. Play action. Gregory goes to Eric Enoch. Fine defensive play by Randall Boone, number 49. Broke that up.
Randall Boone, the leading interceptor for Georgia Southern this year with 5. Kevin Whitley has 4 for him. Dixon has moved into 3rd place on the season with 3. Boone, of course, the Marshall players wanting a flag, but just good coverage, managed to reach over the top and knock it away.
Kevin Harrison, Scott Heckel, Steve Gioli, Don Mahoney, and Greg Adkins, the interior offensive line. As you look at Randall Boone, these guys say we never mentioned the interior linemen. There they're mentioned. Boone is a big guy for a strong safety at 6'3". Gregory on the day so far, 12 out of 22 for 159 yards, an interception and a TD. Gregory gets it over to Darby, and Darby has some running room into Georgia Southern territory. Bodie trying to block for him, and they bring him down inside the 20-yard line. He fumbles, and Georgia Southern has the ball.
Let's see whether they say it was on the ground first. The ball might have bounced off of the ground. There's
One
no
official
indication.
pointing down at the 19-yard line. Marshall will retain possession, and the crowd does not like it. The ground cannot cause a fumble.
That's right.
We'll look at that again, Kenny.
Now here's how you beat the blitz, Bob. Boom, right over the top. I think this is what they might have been trying to do down near the end zone on the last series, but nobody was where Gregory threw the ball. Darby, of course, not blazing speed, but good speed. Gets caught from behind. Now here's the key of it. Does the ground cause the ball to pop up? Oh, I don't know. Okay, let's watch it again. Now it looks from the other angle that Darby loses.
Oh, yes, Darby lost that ball before it ever went down. That is definitely a fumble from that angle.
Marshall gets a big break. Of course, in the NCAA, there is no instant replay. You can't overrule it. Irk
is irked.
Look at the sweat running down the back there. Irk is feeling a little heat here on this rather cool day at Glenn Bryant Field.
He's upset at that call, and justly so.
Yes, justifiably so. Marshall, a big break as Darby fumbles, but gets away with it.
Gary Parks in the backfield, number 44, split backs. The handoff goes to Parks. He tries to get it out to the left, and he gets inside the 15-yard line before he's driven out of bounds.
You talk about the breaks in a football game.
Everett Sharp, who's in at a linebacker position, making the tackle.
Talk about the breaks, talk about things going your way. Obviously, Marshall, a huge break on that play. It would have been disheartening after a very successful pass and run, big gainer down to inside your opponent's 20-yard line, and then boom, come up with a fumble. However, that's not the case. Marshall
the only thing I can figure is that the official who made the call was calling it from the back and never saw when the ball came out. This is Parks once again, and he gets across the 10-yard line. Darrell Hendricks making the tackle.
And we have a lot of advantages up here. We have slow motion. We can stop it, look at it. It's a call that the official has to make in a split second. And it was, as we've said, an obvious bad call. But that happens.
Darby comes back in and Parks comes out. Ricardo Clark wide to the left and Andre Motley on the right. I formation behind Gregory. John hands it to Darby. There's some running room, and he gets in for the touchdown. Ron Darby going across.
He is so good at that. You'd think he's small, he's not a banger, and yet when he gets near the end zone, he just pounds right through people.
Ron Darby scores for the Thundering Herd, and Marshall has the lead 23-21 in a seesaw back-and-forth battle here in Statesboro, Georgia. Huey Klein will try the point. Bobby Lutz, the long snapper, and Scott Crouch, number 88, will have the hold.
On that run, Darby was hit by Randall Boone, who at 6'3", 200, is about 25 pounds heavier and has about 8 inches on him, but it didn't faze Darby one bit.
Huey Klein adds the PAT. It's now 24-21. The Thundering Herd on top.
Take a look at the touchdown again. Darby is just strong, determined running. He gets popped by Boone at about the 2 or 3 yard line. Watch this, Boone with a big hit. Didn't even faze him. Darby's into the end zone. Marshall's on top.
A very compact 5'7". He weighs 170 pounds. He looks very small, and he is for a college running back. But he has been very durable over the years for the Thundering Herd. And Marshall, 24-21 over Georgia Southern. The crowd is a little distraught right now, and perhaps with some reason.
Just a bit distraught, but there's some guys in green and white that aren't too unhappy.
There's some Marshall fans down from Huntington, West Virginia, the home of the Thundering Herd.
have a nice little section to themselves, surrounded, of course, by a lot of blue and white, but there is a smattering of green and white on the visitor side, and they're pretty pleased with what's going on thus far at Paulson Stadium. Some big questions as to whether Marshall could hang with Georgia Southern. I think those have been answered, at least in the first half. 5 plays, 76 yards. Of course, the big chunk coming from the pass and run from Gregory to Darby. Darby with an 8-yard touchdown. Didn't take him long, just a minute 16.
2:44 to go in the first half. Tyler Timian will kick it off for the Thundering Herd, and the deep man at the goal line, Carl Miller, the junior from College Park, Maryland. Across the 20, and down he goes at about the 22-yard line. Everett Wiley in on special teams, sophomore, making the stop for Marshall. So the Eagles, with 2:38 remaining, trailing by 3, will have it 1st and 10. Or if you would prefer, 1st and about, he didn't get out to the 20. He's down at the 18-yard line, 1st and 82.
And this is the disadvantage of a running team. Unless you can rip off a couple of big chunk gains, like they're capable of doing, of course, you can't just air it out over the air.
Well, give it to Joe Ross. He has ripped off several big games.
And there's the handoff.
You think I can't coach football?
No, well.
He gains about 6 yards.
I think about 21,000 people called that play.
Eric Gates on the tackle. At halftime, we'll have a look at Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia. We'll have a look at Georgia Southern here in Statesboro, Georgia, and be talking with Bucky Wagner, the athletic director for Georgia Southern. Gross still has it, and he's brought down at the 21. Good defense that time by the Thundering Herd. Mason in there, and also Mark Blake.
Good pursuit from the backside. Watch this. Now he stops and hands off, but he has to, when he faked the handoff to Ross, he had to stop. And because the backside pressure was coming in so fast, it worked out to a tackle for loss for Marshall.
3rd and 7. Gross looks to pass. He has some time. And it's complete to Ross. He's out to the 34-yard line. Good coverage deep. Ross, the fullback, just slipped through the line and was wide open over the middle.
That's the type of play that George Chomp has been calling for Marshall. Just a possession pass, get him a 1st down, keep the drive going. Gross back to pass, looking over the middle. Nothing fancy. If you're going to get it to a man, there's the guy you want to get it to.
Gross to pass again, can't find anybody open, and then he unloads it to Donnie Allen. And Allen breaks into Marshall territory at the 47-yard line. Jarrett Thomas, sophomore from St. Albans, West Virginia, making the tackle. 1:21 remaining in the first period as the clock stops after the 1st down while they move the chains.
1st and 10.
The ball marked at the 47. Again, Gross back to pass. He's being pressured. After him is Larry Huffman. He gets away from Huffman. Now Downey chases him. He fires it up the field. Almost intercepted by Woodson. Pass intended for Donnie Allen. Incomplete, and that stops the clock at 1:04. Rory Fitzpatrick also putting a lot of heat on Gross.
You give a guy that much time, the danger is somebody is going to sneak and get by the defense and be open for a big gainer. That was the case. Gross just underthrew the ball.
Darrell Hopkins, sophomore from Watkinsville, Georgia, number 25, checks in, replacing Ernest Thompson at a slot back position for the Eagles. Gross hands it off to Ross, and he breaks away again, down to the 30, 25 before he goes out of bounds. Vaughn Woodson finally there to shove him out. This fella has had a career here in the first half, a career afternoon.
That's happened a lot against Marshall this year. We've made opposing running backs look good. The green and white has made opposing running backs look good.
Here he comes. Ross, a strong runner.
Great speed, breaks it to the outside. One man to beat, and just runs out of football field.
The ball just inside the 25. There's a minute 2 to go. Gross on a keeper. Now he pitches to Ross, and Ross into the 15. Clock is stopped with 52 seconds to go. Jared Thomas making the tackle for Marshall. So the Eagles trailing by 3, threatening to retake the lead before the half is over. 52 seconds remaining. Clock stopped while the chains were moved, and Woolridge signals start that clock again. Gross calls his signals. He comes left. He pitches to Ross. Great block. And he pulls into the end zone for the touchdown. I did not see who got that block at about the 12-yard line. Was it Miller?
Looked like Carl Miller with a great block to spring Ross, and once he gets a full head of steam going, one man is not going to stop him inside the 5-yard line.
27-24. Georgia Southern on top of the Thundering Herd.
Let's see if it's Miller. Great lead block by the guard.
And he got down
Gainey.
There's George Barlow.
Just can't stop him. Too big, too strong, too fast. Sean Gainey with a nice lead block, but that wasn't the one we were talking about. Looked like Miller managed to cut down the defender and open the path.
Dallas adds the extra point to make it 28-24. There's 34 seconds remaining in the first half as Georgia Southern roared down the field for the go-ahead touchdown.
Now here's the play. There's the nice block
by Gainey.
But there's Miller with a nice block. And then Ross just bowls his way into the end zone for the touchdown.
Joe Ross, 16 rushes, 164 yards, and we're just finishing up the first half.
No wonder he's sitting down. Guy's got to be tired. 6'1", 207-pound junior running back. He'll be back next year to wreak some havoc for the Eagles' opponent.
Police report behind the Eagle bench at this time. Dan Ross.
So Marshall will have 34 seconds. It'll be interesting to see if the Thundering Herd goes for the big one or just runs out the clock. We've been playing football for an hour and a half. 52 points scored so far in the first half. And it ain't over yet, Fred. It's hard to tell what's likely to happen. Wide open offensive football game, and I think at the top of the broadcast we pointed that out. It would probably be so with two very potent offenses. Orlando Hatchett takes the kickoff. Out over the 30, near the 35, and he runs out of real estate, goes out of bounds on the far side. 30 seconds left.
Tell you what the Thundering...
Clint Averett making the defensive play.
Pardon me, Mr. Bowen. Tell you what the Thundering Herd has managed to do in 2 quarters. They've scored more points in a half a football game than any Georgia Southern opponent has scored all year. Marshall with 24. The previous high was James Madison. Georgia Southern managed to beat James Madison 36-21. Marshall's already got 24 in just 2 quarters.
8 plays, 82 yards, 2 minutes, 10 seconds. Joe Ross, a 13-yard touchdown run, and it's 28-24. Georgia Southern on top.
Did exactly what we talked about they needed to do. They got some big yardage games from Ross. However, the pass, remember the controlled pass, that gained him a first down. That kept the drive going, so that they managed to do it through the air as well.
Gregory's going to put it up one more time. He throws it out to Darby. And Ron battles his way near the 40. He's knocked out of bounds, and that stops the clock with 21 seconds remaining. Sean Harrelson, a backup defensive player, making the stop. He's only a freshman. He's from Westminster, Maryland for Georgia Southern. Ball is marked down at the 39-yard line. Gain of about 5. 2nd and 5, but actually 2nd and
it's a long
61.
Long 5, and of course first down doesn't count a whole lot except in the stat book. Marshall needs to get something on the board.
Percy Mormon, Marshall's really deep threat, and unable to play. He got injured. They're going for Clark. He's out there, and the ball is overthrown. Kevin Whitley on the defensive coverage. He slowed Clark out a little bit, and then Clark ran past him, but by then the ball had been thrown and it was over his head. John Gregory talking to the official. I think he wanted illegal contact interference called against Whitley. Well, I know that's what he wanted when he was talking to the official like that. He was pointing downfield, and there was some bumping early.
Clark ran a little flag and go pattern. Gregory with the pump fake, but as you said, he was slowed up just enough to keep the pass from connecting.
So John will put it up again, and it's first down to Andre Motley with 10 seconds remaining. No, he didn't hold it. I thought he caught it over there. George Chomp now a little upset. I guess he must have been out of bounds. He did catch the ball, but he must have been out of bounds.
Here's a look at it. Gregory, of course, it's a quick out, just a chance to gain some yardage, stop the clock. There's the catch, and did he get a foot down?
It looked awfully close on the line. It could have been in or out.
That's what George was talking about when he's holding up one finger. I think all you need is 1 foot, he was saying.
In college football. Well, McVicker's going to kick it. He gets off a nice end-over-end kick. Oglesby lets it bounce. It will be down by Marshall inside the 15 at about the 13-yard line. That's the end of the first half. Marshall and Georgia Southern in a wild and woolly offensive show. Halftime score, the Eagles 28 and the Thundering Herd 24. 28-24, our halftime score. Georgia Southern leading Marshall. Bob Bowen along with Kenny Bass here in Statesboro. Kenny, we said at the pregame, 2 high-powered offenses, 1 through the air, 1 on the ground. And lo and behold, we haven't been wrong.
It is amazing, isn't it?
We expected a lot of offense, and we have seen it.
Well, Joe Ross has been the key for Georgia Southern. Ross has a career high mark in rushing, Bob, of 182 yards. That's the best he's done thus far in his career, right? On the first half against the Marshall Thundering Herd, Ross has collected 164 yards on the ground already. So records could be set for the Eagles in the rushing department.
Here's a look at Joe Ross as he scored the final touchdown of the first half, and just another splendid run by this junior.
Gets a couple of great blocks. The first block from Sean Gainey, who's right there in the middle of your screen. He pulls and just plows the Marshall defender.
Larry Huffman.
Larry Huffman goes down. Carl Miller with another big block, and watch this. This is how you run, boys and girls, if you're out there wanting to play youth football. Just power running, speed, presence on the field. He's into the end zone.
If you weigh 207 pounds and have great athletic ability, that helps also.
Well, yeah, that's true, but there's a little bit more to him, I think, than just size and ability. He's obviously got some instinct. He sees the field very well, and they've tailored this offense to running backs, and he fits right into Irk's scheme.
Here's a look at one of the Marshall touchdowns. We've had 7 touchdowns in this first half. There's John Gregory, back to pass, number 11. He fires it to Eric Enot at the 10. He bowls past 2 players into the end zone for the Thundering Herd. Marshall has scored 3 touchdowns, kicked a field goal, had 1 2-point conversion.
Enot was popped there by Bart Hughes for Georgia Southern, but Bart didn't wrap him up, and Eric Enot with presence of mind and strong enough to take the hit and get into the end zone.
Will be interesting to see in the third period, because Georgia Southern has not allowed a point in the third period, having outscored its opponents 83-0 in that third quarter. We'll be back at halftime here in Statesboro, Georgia, in just a moment. Georgia Southern was founded 83 years ago. Georgia Southern College is about to be upgraded to university status. Now here's a closer look at Georgia Southern.
Hey, come on now. What do you say, big guy? Good pitch right here.
College sports have taken some hard hits lately over stories implying that student athletes are more athlete than student. That bothers athletes like Darren Van Tassel. A former Georgia Southern baseball standout, Darren was the only athlete who was a finalist for a Rhodes Scholarship last year. He later won a national NCAA postgraduate fellowship and became the second American baseball player to teach the sport in the Soviet Union.
I think the high visibility of collegiate athletics tends to give the public a one-dimensional picture of the athlete as a player, not as a student. Of course, the press doesn't follow us into the class or keep stats on grade point averages, but Georgia Southern athletes know if you're not making it in the classroom. Because if you're not making the grades, you're not going to play. And hey, what more motivation do you want?
Carolyn Rekemp goes a step further. For her, athletics is a good influence on academics. Carolyn came to Southern as an honors scholar and Spanish major, not an athlete. Then she ran into the cross-country team.
I wasn't involved in sports in high school and never really considered myself an athlete. I did a little running with my dad and became interested in cross-country. I found that pushing myself physically really raised my energy level, not just for running, but for studying. I feel that you can be serious about your sport and your classes. In fact, one complements the other.
Another Eagle athlete is Alejandro Porcello, a senior business major who plays on his country's Davis Cup team and sports an A average at Southern.
He is very demanding to give 100% on the tennis court and in the classroom. In addition, as you can tell, it has been very hard for me because I have to learn a second language. But in the long run, I think it's going to be worth it.
Scholar athletes like Alex, Carolyn, and Darren are winners because they know college is more than playing games. It's playing for keeps.
We're at halftime here at Georgia Southern, and the Eagles leading the Thundering Herd of Marshall 28-24. A couple of other scores from around the area. Furman 21, Citadel nothing in the first period. Appalachian State in front of Western Carolina 7-0 in the second period. Here's a surprise. East Carolina 21, Pittsburgh 7. That game in the second quarter. We'll return to Allen E. Paulson Stadium in Statesboro, Georgia in just a moment. A couple of other scores of interest around the area. Florida leading Kentucky 10-7 in the second period. Ohio State 7, Wisconsin 6 in the second quarter. Georgia Tech in front of Wake Forest 29-0. That game is in the third period. And North Carolina State leading Virginia Tech 16-14 at halftime. The athletic director here at Georgia Southern is Dr. David Bucky Wagner. Bucky Wagner, a quarterback at Ohio University in 1960 when the Bobcats won the Mid-America Conference Championship, took over the athletic directorship here in 1980 and has produced quite an athletic program. Right now we're going to talk to Bucky Wagner. Bucky, on December 16th, the National 1AA Championship game here. I guess everybody at Georgia Southern is enthused about it?
Enthused is not the word for it. We're getting 500 to 600 ticket applications a day. We've already sold all of our permanent seating. We're selling seats on the bank right now. And it should just really be a wonderful day. We're trying to build the championship as an event similar to a bowl game. We have a halftime pageant. We'll have a band of over 400 band members. We have some mechanical magnolias that are going to blossom during the game. We're going to have a big South Georgia cookout before the game, a barbecue. And then after the game, right after the awards ceremony, Lee Greenwood's going to be in concert here. So we hope that the winners will be there with tears in their eyes, hugging Lee Greenwood, saying, "I'm proud to be an American," when it's all over.
I guess you're counting or hoping that Georgia Southern will be in that game.
Well, we planned it that way. We would sure like to be in the game, but you never know when it's one loss and out, so we just play them one at a time.
You've been AD here for almost 10 years, a remarkable story. 8 years of football, you've never had a losing season, you've won a couple of national championships. How do you produce such an outstanding football program?
Well, it's a combination of three things. We've had good, strong administrative support that you need. We have good coaches and good players, and we have just outstanding community support. And I think you have to have those three combinations. If your administration is not for you, you can't do it. Of course, if you don't have the players, that speaks for itself. But then our community, our Southern Boosters, has raised over $10 million for our program for capital improvements such as this stadium, our practice fields, the weight room facility. We're raising about just under $1 million a year for our scholarship program. So that type of community support is really what's made us. It's been the margin of excellence. But what we've been able to do for the community is through the football program, our enrollment is up almost 100%. We were at 6,000 when we started the football program. We're almost 12 now. The contributions to school are up over 300%, and the impact that football has had on South Georgia exceeds $55 million a year. Now, as they served us, we were able to turn around and serve them, and it's really been a wonderful situation.
Well, it's good for us to be down here visiting with you, and you ever back up around Ohio U, Marshall, stop by and say hello.
That's God's country, and I sure will. Thank you.
Bucky Wagner, the athletic director here at Georgia Southern, a former Bobcat from Ohio University. We're at halftime. Georgia Southern leading Marshall 28-24. We will return to Allen E. Paulson Stadium in Statesboro in just a moment.
Howard Johnson and Savannah, the city of festivals.
We're here at halftime, and the teams have just returned to the field. We have a few seconds before kickoff. Georgia Southern leading 28-24. The Eagles will receive to start this second half. They won the toss and deferred. They'll take the football. A lot of offense in that first half. Kenny.
Statistically speaking, Bob, pretty even. 15 first downs for Marshall. The Eagles have collected one more rushing yards. Of course, Georgia Southern behind the 164 yards rushing of Ross. They've collected 227 on the ground. The Thundering Herd, 101, a quiet 101. Of course, John Gregory got some good yards on a scramble. Ricardo Clark on a reverse, so they managed to pick up over 100. In the passing situation, no surprise here. The Thundering Herd through the air, 220 yards. The Georgia Southern has only collected 30, but a big first down possession pass that kept that late touchdown drive alive for the Eagles. 321 yards total offense for Marshall, 257 for Georgia Southern. Only one turnover in the first half, but it was a big one as John Gregory threw the interception to Taz Dixon. He returned it 41 yards for the touchdown. Time of possession, Marshall has had it more than Georgia Southern. However, the Eagles lead it 28-24.
Tyler Timian will kick it off for the Thundering Herd. Number 24, Carl Miller, junior from College Park, the deep man in the middle, standing at the goal line. Win behind Timian on this one. Miller takes it in 1 yard deep and keeps it there. So the Eagles, leading by 4, will put it in play, 1st and 10 from their own 20-yard line. Marshall, 321 yards total offense in that first half and trails by 4.
36 Ross, 12 Thompson,
Here you look at the offensive unit of Georgia Southern. Wilson, Bernard, Twiggs, Gainey, and George Jones, the interior linemen. Quarterback is Gross, Ross the fullback. The slot backs are Carl Miller and Ernest Thompson, Donnie Allen, and Terrence Sorrell, the split ends. Gross pitches it back to Miller. He has running room out across the 35 to the 37-yard line of the Thundering Herd. A gain of about 17. Matt Downey finally made the stop for Marshall. Another first down for Georgia Southern.
Don't a lot of talk about Joe Ross, but Thompson is no slouch in the rushing department either.
Defensive alignment for Marshall: Mark Blake, John Humphrey, Rory Fitzpatrick, the down lineman. This is Joe Ross in the Marshall territory. Woodson's after him. Can't get him, and finally he is missed by Barlow, and he goes in for the touchdown. What a run by Joe Ross. We've said this innumerable times, but this may have been the best. He had 2 guys with shots at him right at the sidelines.
62-yard touchdown for Joe Ross. Here's a look at it. Ross takes it. It's the same play that's hurt Marshall all day long. It's just a short pop right up the middle, and Ross is the one who makes it happen as he breaks it out and then uses a burst of speed to get by not 1 but 2 players. Walks the tightrope on the sidelines. Vaughn Woodson can't get him. George Barlow can't get him. It's a touchdown.
And Dallas kicks the extra point. It's 35-24, and we've played exactly 34 seconds of the second half. You know, Joe Ross set a record. We'll talk about that when we come back. Joe Ross and his running. We'll be back in just a moment.
Now it pays to know Geo Prism. Up to $2,000 for your down payment from GMAC and your Southeast Georgia Chevy dealer. 1990 Geo Prism. Built in the same plant alongside Toyota Corolla. Import technology with up to $2,000 in down payment assistance. Geo Prism. Big Chevrolet Geo discounts and up to $2,000 in down payment assistance at your Southeast Georgia Chevy dealer.
How about them Geos?
Get to know Geo. It pays.
There's Joe Ross. He just set a new record.
New career rushing record for Joe Ross as far as a game. He's now gained 226 yards. The previous high, 182. He's already scored 3 touchdowns. We've got a full half of football yet to play.
At 182 against Middle Tennessee State during Hurricane Hugo.
So it shows he can keep his concentration during times of trouble.
Kickoff is a bouncer picked up by Hatchett on the 15-yard line. And he's dragged down on the 19-yard line. Good coverage by the Eagles. Bart Hughes, number 97, made the stop, so Marshall will put it in play. The nose of the football right at the 20. Trailing by 11 now, the Thundering Herd. And keep this in mind, as Kenny pointed out earlier, Georgia Southern has not given up a point in the third quarter all year.
The 21-point score by James Madison against the Eagles, that all happened in the first half. Of course, Marshall has scored more points against Georgia Southern than any team thus far this year. They've got 24. But this will tell the tale. Can they score after intermission?
John Gregory back to pass. And he threw it just behind the intended receiver, Ricardo Clark. Gregory had some pressure at that time. Keith Whitley was on the defensive coverage. Kevin Whitley. 2 plays, 80 yards, 34 seconds, 62-yard run by Ross. That's the scoring drive.
Well, they haven't exactly been grinded out type drives for touchdowns. These guys have been scoring quickly. Darrell Hendricks dropped back into coverage that time for Georgia Southern. The ball had been thrown just a little bit shorter. He would have had an interception. Hendricks had been pressuring and blitzing. However, he dropped back that time, and Gregory almost threw it right into his arm.
Double tight end, Ron Darby, the only setback as Gregory gives it off to Darby. He's going left, looking for a running room, crosses the 20 and gets out to the 25-yard line where he's knocked down. It'll be 3rd and 5. Randall Boone making the stop. A couple of other scores of interest. Tennessee leading Mississippi 17-14 at halftime. North Carolina State 16. Virginia Tech 14 at halftime. Duke over North Carolina 27-0 in the third period. So 3rd and 5 for the Thundering Herd from its own 25-yard line. Darby the only setback, and we have a flag. Number 90, Pat Parr jumped offside, but was he drawn off? We shall see. As Dan Woolridge, the referee in the white hat, comes in to discuss the situation.
What a shock, Bob. The Georgia Southern players are saying Marshall moved.
Well, Dan Woolridge says not so. So that should give Marshall a first down.
It will be close. The nose of the ball is beyond the 30, so they're going to move the chains, it looks like.
The ball, just the nose of it, just shy of the 20, and now it's setting squarely on the 30. It is a first down. 1st and 10 for the Thundering Herd, down by 11 points. Marshall has not lost a game at home this year, as we pointed out, 6-0, but it has not won a game on the road, 0-4.
And if you're on the road, this is not the best place to come looking for your first victory.
Undefeated, top-ranked 1AA team in the country, the Eagles of Georgia Southern. John Gregory fakes a handoff, little play action, goes deep. And it's intercepted by Randall Boone as he and Eric Enoch fought for the football.
Got a flag down on the play back at about the Marshall 45-yard line. The official standing over it, protecting it. Marshall players with a preliminary indication. They're pointing that it's against the Eagles. We'll have to wait and see.
No matter what the Marshall players say, it's what Dan Woolridge says.
Exactly. The Marshall player, however, was talking to the official.
Holding against Georgia Southern.
I believe it happens right before the catch. Don't know exactly what they're calling it on, but it looks like perhaps that Randall Boone was holding the receiver up before the ball got there. Let's take a look. Holding is the call. See if we can see it on the replay. Gregory dropping back. Going to go over the top. And the flag is...
Well, the flag is behind where they are now.
I believe that's what happened, Bob. Whenever running down the sidelines, and Boone held him up, slowed him down because Boone was beaten on the play. Unless that would have happened, Boone would have been beaten.
1st and 10 for the Thundering Herd on the 40-yard line. Hand off to Michael Bryant, the fullback, sophomore from Atlanta, Georgia. picks up a couple. 3 Georgia players on this Thundering Herd squad. Tim Brown making the tackle. Michael Bryant, one of them. Ricardo Clark, who is from Tignall, Georgia, and Tim Mitchell, who is from Decatur, Georgia.
That pass was very reminiscent of the one that Gregory threw last week. The touchdown pass to Eric Enot, where he broke the Southern Conference career yardage mark, where Enot juggled it, and pulled it in. Ball was doing a lot of bouncing out there, but penalty canceled everything out.
2nd and 8 for the Thundering Herd. I formation in behind John Gregory. Eric Enot, the tight end, moves to the left side. Play action. Gregory over the middle. Good to Enot at the 45. Down inside the 40 to the 38-yard line of Georgia Southern. Another first down for the Thundering Herd.
Ron Darby with a great block, stopping the pressure from the outside. Georgia Southern. Eric Russell said he was going to blitz. Darby picked up the blitzing backer and gave Gregory enough time to complete the pass to Enot.
Randall Boone, Taz Dixon on the stop for the Eagles.
Look to the left of your screen. Well, we're not going to be able to see it. Darby with a great block, and it gives Gregory enough time to get it to Enot.
1st and 10 from the 38. Somebody on the left side of the Marshall line jumped. That was Madison Sayer, the sophomore from Nitro, West Virginia. A 5-yard penalty against the Thundering Herd. We've talked a lot about Joe Ross and his running, and deservedly so. He has been magnificent. Let's give some credit to the interior linemen of Georgia Southern. John Wilson, Brad Bernard, Sammy Twiggs, the center, Sean Gainey, and George Jones, right guard and right tackle, respectively. They have been moving Marshall players out of the way. Even O.J. Simpson had to have some blocking.
The electric company used to turn loose the juice.
Gregory hands off to Michael Bryant, and Bryant gets to the 40-yard line, slanting off left tackle. Michael Berry, linebacker on the stop. He is also from Atlanta, a sophomore. Bryant from Atlanta.
Talk about Georgia Southern's offensive line. I've been impressed with not only their strength and ability to clear some blocks, but these guys are mobile. Remember the touchdown run where Gainey pulled, and it was just nice athleticism on the part of the Georgia Southern defensive line.
Split backs behind John Gregory, wide out to each side. Gregory to pass. He gets protection. He fires it over the head of Andre Motley. Motley was there, and John led him just a little bit too much.
Wide open.
Rodney Oglesby on the coverage for Georgia Southern. Shane Maxwell, number 44, into the lineup defensively for the Eagles. He's a sophomore, another sophomore. He's from Winder, Georgia. Winder, Georgia. Third and 11 as Gregory goes back to pass once again. Again, protection over the middle for Motley, and he hauls it in at the 27, 28-yard line.
Looks like a first down. Depends on the spot, of course, but his forward progress looked like it carried him past the end chain.
Tremendous offensive show by both ball clubs. We've had 59 points scored, and we still have 10 and a half minutes to go in the third period. Taz Dixon on the coverage, making the tackle. We might have a measurement here.
They're going to bring it out. They've spotted the ball. It's a good spot where he ended up. I thought they might give him forward progress. That's not the case, so I don't know whether it is going to be close. He did move past the first down marker. However, he was brought back inside and went to see what the measurement is.
First down for the Marshall Thundering Herd.
A long, confusing statement for a short first down.
Andre Motley, the leading receiver for Marshall this season. He's from Canton, Ohio, a junior. He is the nephew of a gentleman named Marion Motley. Kenny, you're too young to remember. He was a great fullback for the Cleveland Browns back in the 1950s. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Well, the name does ring a bell. I don't remember very clearly.
I've read about him.
I've heard about him. You've read about him?
Yes. First and 10 for the Thundering Herd. Again, Gregory to the air. And it's just out of the reach of fullback Michael Bryant. Good defensive coverage that time in the secondary by number 37. That's Everett Sharp, a linebacker. Was not in the starting lineup, but he has had several calls here this afternoon, doing a good job while he's in there. Vince Bodie checks in for Marshall at a wide out. Senior from Leisure, Florida. He'll come wide to the right and Motley to the left. 2nd and 10 for Marshall. Ball at the Georgia Southern 28. Hurd down by 11. Again, Gregory to throw. And right past Vince Bodie. Darrell Hendricks on the coverage.
Whitley and Maxwell on the coverage. 3rd down.
So it's a 3rd and 10 now for the Thundering Herd. Clark in and Bodie out, bringing in the play from Coach George Chomp on the sidelines.
You don't go through a whole season and not give up any points in the 3rd quarter by just bending over and letting these guys just run right over you. I mean, they're bowing their necks and they're staying tough, tight in their own territory.
Again, Gregory under pressure, lobs it out for Darby, and again it's intercepted at open field. Another touchdown on an interception for Georgia Southern. Darrell Hendricks, who has played a spectacular game, took the ball in at about the 30-yard line and rambled 70 yards as Marshall tried to throw it into the flat. Gift Smith got a great block to spring him loose after he made the interception.
There's a flag on the play. We'll have to see what the call is.
Flag's at the 41-yard line. John Gregory, under extreme pressure by Georgia Southern for the 2nd time, has thrown an interception. We'll see what the flag's all about.
Looked like the preliminary indication was holding against Georgia Southern. Now, I don't know if that means after the interception. We'll have to wait and see if the interception is going to count, but I think it might nullify the touchdown.
There's Coach George Chomp.
The interception stands. The call is holding after Georgia Southern. The offensive unit will come on the field. No score on the play.
Wipe out the touchdown.
But it was pretty, wasn't it? If you're a Georgia Southern fan, it was pretty.
Earlier in the ball game, in the first half, Taz Dixon picked off a pass on a very similar play. Irk Russell talking with one of the officials there. There's Darrell Hendricks, a 219-pound senior for the Eagles, and he's turned in a great performance this afternoon.
Early in the game, blitzing a lot. He's dropped back into coverage now, and he's there where the ball was.
Joe Ross across the 40 to the 42. 9.5 minutes remaining in the 3rd period. 35-24. The Eagles leading the Thundering Herd.
That interception, Bob, was a case where John Gregory, I think, just should have eaten the ball. And looking back at it, I'm sure he'll say that also. There's just hardly any chance at all for the reception. Should have eaten it, taken the loss, punted it away, and put Georgia Southern deep in its own territory.
Marshall shifting players on defense, trying to stop this triple option. Pitch comes back to Carl Miller, and he's driven out of bounds on the far side. Picks up 2 or 3. Oh, that was Ernest Thompson carrying the football. I beg your pardon. Mark Blake driving him out of bounds for the Thundering Herd. There he is, Ernest Thompson, number 12, a senior, 222 pounds. He is the touchdown man, the short yardage man for Irk Russell's Eagles.
19 last season, set a new Georgia Southern record. He's hit the end zone 14 times this year.
3rd down, 1 for the Eagles. Raymond Gross calling the play, sizing up the opposition. And the short yardage man gets it. Ernest Thompson, he makes the 1st down. Tackled by Eric Gates, but not before the 1st down had been achieved. Thompson looks a little irked there as he was jumping around. I guess maybe he thought he should have had more yards.
At Georgia Southern, that's a verb if you're irked. It's to irk.
He has rushed for 14 touchdowns. He's also scored 2 on pass reception. So he had 16 coming into this game.
2 of 4 that Gross has thrown.
That's Joe Ross once again. Matt Downey making the tackle for the Thundering Herd. He's into Marshall territory.
When you have a back like Joe Ross and you have the lead, it opens up a world of possibilities for you if you're a Georgia Southern head coach.
Tim Mitchell also in on that stop. He's a junior from Decatur. Ross is hobbling out of the ball game, and coming in is Lester Eford.
See if we can see what it looked like. His ankle might have turned up under him on that last play, but he is now on the sideline.
So Eford running at fullback. He gets the ball at short yardage. He's a sophomore, 5'8", 222 from Warner Robins, Georgia. He has scored 3 touchdowns this year and gained 234 yards rushing, an average of 4.8, which is not too shabby. There you're looking at Joe Ross trying to walk it off on the sidelines.
He might just be tired. I mean, the guy's run for about 3 miles today already. Maybe he's just taking a break.
1st and 10 for the Eagles. The ball at the 46-yard line of Marshall, and at the 50, midfield, Gross goes down.
Good
Eric
defense.
Gates in there. Also Mark Blake.
There wasn't a face masking call here on the home side of the stands. Don't think they're going to get it. The hand was up around the face mask, but I think he just...
Jared Thomas also in on the stop. Now Ernest Thompson checks back in the ball game. Eastern Kentucky and Morehead State tied 10-10 in the 3rd period. Eastern Kentucky, a perennial power in 1AA football. Groves pitches wide, and Thompson picks up short yardage before he goes out of bounds. Larry Huffman driving him out for Marshall.
Working on his ankle. That's the ankle. It looked like it turned up under him on his last carry. He came limping off and taping back up. Doesn't look like he's in a great deal of pain. You'll probably see him again.
He hurt that ankle a couple of weeks ago and has had some difficulty with it.
I can't tell by his yardage totals today.
Wonder what he'd do if he were healthy.
Yeah, gee. Feel sorry for Eric Russell to have an injured back there, only gaining 250 some odd yards.
Donnie Allen comes wide to the left. That's Carl Miller in the slot as Gross fires it long. Intended for Sorrell. And we're going to have an interference call. Terrence Sorrell, the intended receiver, and the interference flag is down at the 3-yard line. Tim Mitchell was on the coverage. You can see him there spreading his hands as if to say, what to do, what to do.
Got in the way, evidently.
The official was right on it. He didn't throw the flag. He just dropped it.
George Chomp on the field, wanting to speak with someone, I'm sure, about the call.
Darrell Hopkins checks into the offensive lineup. Look at it again, Kenny.
We've talked about the running game. Gross can throw it. He's got a long pass this year, 51 yards. He can get it down the field in a hurry. And there looks like there was some bumping going on before the ball arrived. I'd say that's a good call by the official.
Not incidental contact.
Didn't look like it. Like he impeded his path to the football. Is that the correct thing? Impeding someone's path will get you in trouble?
It sounds good. A 15-yard penalty against the Thundering Herd. College football rules different than the pro, where it is at the spot of the infraction. And that will move the ball inside the Marshall 35 at the 33-yard line. 1st and 10 for the Eagles. 6.5 minutes to go in the 3rd period. 35-24. And down to the 25-yard line goes Georgia Southern. Jared Thomas making the tackle on Lester Eford.
Penalty is a big hit for Marshall. They had Georgia Southern in a 3rd and 13 situation. If there's no penalty on the play, then Georgia Southern is forced into a punt. Marshall gets the ball back with about 6 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. Still a chance to score. That's not the case.
2nd and about 1.5 yards for the 1st down. Eford again, and he's right at that 1st down marker. Rory Fitzpatrick, the senior from Akron, making the initial hit. Matt Downey also in on the tackle. We may have a measurement. No, he's a little short, they say. 3rd down, less than 1 yard to go. Gross keeps it, and he gets to the 21 for the 1st down. Auburn leading Georgia by a score of 20-3 in the 4th period. Larry Huffman in there for Marshall on that play. Senior from Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Marshall's defense commits to the inside handoff. Nobody covers Groves. He pops over the top for the first down.
Ball at the 21, 1st and 10. The undefeated Eagles of Georgia Southern, and Eford is smacked down as he took the handoff. Eric Gates crashing in to make the tackle. This triple option offense, the flex ball, has given a lot of football teams a lot of trouble, and it's giving the Marshall Thundering Herd a lot of trouble as Tim Flaherty goes out and Matt Downey comes back in for Marshall. Downey playing with an injured wrist. That's a final score, Auburn beating Georgia. There you look at Eric Gates. He's from Parkersburg, West Virginia. Transferred to Marshall from Ohio University.
Busy guy today.
13 tackles today.
We talked about that at the top, Bob, how important Marshall's linebackers would be. They'd have to penetrate, they'd have to wreak some havoc. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to stop Joe Ross, and that's turned into a big Georgia Southern lead, 35-24.
Joe Ross is back on the field. That was what the cheer was from the crowd. We have a timeout down on the field, and we'll be back with 4:23 to go in the 3rd period right after you look at this. 4-yard line.
Sorrell ran a straight fly pattern, then he stopped, curled back. Nice catch.
Eric Wiley was there on the defensive coverage for the Thundering Herd, but that was a fine thrown football.
Watch this. Now he was on, now before he makes the curl and turns, he's on a straight fly for the end zone. The defensive back, Wiley, goes back to give him room. However, he just put on the brakes, turned around, the ball was right there.
Marshall now with its defensive goal line unit in, Ratliff in, Richard in. Doesn't make any difference to the man, Thompson, Ernest Thompson. He just raced untouched into the end zone for 4 yards out. And now Georgia Southern is taking really command of what had been a seesaw football game.
That's his forte, of course, running the ball inside the 5. Nobody touches him, so this was one of the easier touchdowns for Mr. Thompson, the 15th of the year for him.
Again, credit to John Wilson, Brad Bernard, Sammy Twiggs, Sean Gainey, and George Jones, the interior lineman. And Lester Eford had a good block, and the point after was good. It's 42-24. We'll return with the Georgia Southern kicking off to the Thundering Herd. David Kuhl will kick it off for the Eagles, now with an 18-point lead over the Thundering Herd. Kerry Parks is back deep for Marshall, along with Orlando Hatchett and Ron Darby. Percy Mormon started the ball game, or was in the ball game early for Marshall, got injured, and has not been seen since the 1st quarter. Taken in at the 16 by Parks. Down at the 23.
Let's take a look at the score. Gross barks out the signals. It's a straight dive right up the middle. Plenty of blocking in front. Nobody, well, they touch him, but very lightly as he scores for the touchdown. One of the longest drives of the day. 5 minutes and 30 seconds, 69 yards, 13 plays. Of course, capped off by Ernest Thompson's 15th TD of the year.
Marshall down by 18. Football at the 23-yard line. 1st and 10 as Gregory gets set to pass. He has great pressure, and he is down. He scrambles back to the line of scrimmage. That was Giff Smith and Pat Parr applying the pressure to Marshall quarterback John Gregory. He may have been stopped just shy of the line of scrimmage. A loss of 1, make it now 2nd and 11.
Looks like Georgia Southern is getting stronger and stronger as the game progresses. That's been the team's forte. Gregory manages to evade the tackler at first. However, when he steps up, the pocket has already collapsed, and he has to eat it.
Ricardo Clark wide to the right. Andre Motley set out on the left. A single setback behind Gregory, and once again he'll go to the air. He has time And it's intercepted by Randall Boone. And Boone is taken down at the Marshall 28-yard line. Gift Smith had great pressure on John Gregory, and he threw his third interception of the afternoon. Gregory had only been intercepted 8 times all season.
There's a flag down on the play. It looks like they're going to call clipping on the Eagles. However, the interception should stand. Georgia Southern will take possession. They're just going to have to walk 15 yards back the other way.
Randall Boone from Uvalde, Georgia. A senior at 200 pounds, his 6th interception.
That leads the team. Leads the team in interceptions. John Gregory struggling out there, trying to make something happen, wanting to get his team back into the ball game. He's a gutty performer. He's a senior. He wants to go out in style. Just doesn't look like it's going to happen today.
That clip call against Ron Darby, I think.
Perhaps Darby was clipped. Trying to make
That's what I meant to say. Yeah, Darby was the man who was clipped. The pitch comes to Joe Ross, running wide this time, and to the 41-yard line where he goes out of bounds. Eric Wiley, who's in at a defensive back, making a defensive stop for the Thundering Herd.
And that's a good defensive play. I mean, he gains how many yards? What did he get out of that?
He
4
got
5?
4.
But still, a 5-yard gain, which is a nice gain, but a great play because it stopped him from ripping off a 20 or 30-yard gain, which he's done quite often this afternoon.
Tim Flaherty and Matt Caton go out of the Marshall lineup, a couple of linebackers. Downey is back in. Gates is there. Von Woodson moves up close, almost at a linebacker position. As Gross goes to pass, he fires it for the end zone. Donnie Allen is there and takes it in. Boy, they made it look easy on that one. Run, draw that defense up, and just fire it over it. For Donnie Allen, he is the leading receiver. He had 16 receptions coming into this game. Only 1 touchdown, however. Tim Mitchell and Eric Wiley were back there, but he just outran them. Here you look at it one more time.
Goes over the top. Marshall is beaten badly on the play. Allen pulls in his 2nd touchdown of the year. Georgia Southern's totally in control.
Dallas with the extra point, and it's now 49-24 in this 3rd period with 2:52 to go. Georgia Southern has scored 21 unanswered points. We will be back.
Until now, the hardest part of working up a thirst was quenching it. Because even though thirst quenchers were good for you, they just didn't taste very good. Until 10K. Finally, a thirst quencher with vitamin C, low sodium, and great taste. So next time you work up a thirst, you'll have something to look forward to. A 10K.
Ways you can look at this, Bob. Look at the scoring drive. 2 plays, 55 yards, 19 seconds for 7 points. It's not a bad price to pay off of the scoreboard.
That's racking them up in a hurry. There's Donnie Allen, the man who made that touchdown reception. In the I formation, Bryant and Darby behind Gregory. Marshall will run with it once or twice, maybe. Darby battling outside, picks up maybe 5, and he is ridden out of bounds by Rodney Oglesby.
With 2:37 left in the 3rd quarter, obviously the 4th quarter coming up, there are 2 ways you can look at it, Bob. You can try to go for it. What do you have to lose, right? You're down by a bunch of points. What the heck? Go over the top, go for it, or just try not to get it all back. Try to just chip away, get in the end zone, get some positive things going for your team.
Vince Spody, number 83, brings the play in from George Chomp on the sideline for the Thundering Herd as he alternates his receivers. Gregory hands off to Darby one more time. Running room across the 40 to the 44-yard line. Ron Darby. Randall Boone made the tackle. That's another Thundering Herd first down. Marshall has moved the football a couple of times early in the 3rd quarter. After the first Georgia Southern score, Marshall moved into Georgia Southern territory, but could not sustain it. And then the Eagles really took command. As you look at Darby, 170 pounds of Ron Darby from Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Georgia Southern's defenders they've got their ears pinned back and they're rushing because they know Marshall has to pass. These are good calls.
Here's Darby coming wide to the right, midfield, and he is slung down. Randall Boone again on the defensive play. Boone's had to work out here this afternoon. Been on a lot of tackles and intercepted a couple of passes. Pretty good afternoon's work. 15 rushes, 61 yards for Ron Darby, a very durable tailback for Marshall. Although the past couple of weeks he has been hampered with a bad leg. But for the most part of his 4-year career at Marshall, he's the school's all-time rushing leader. Southern Conference leader in career all-purpose running. Quick out to Motley from Gregory into Georgia Southern territory. Oglesby on the tackle, sophomore, Swainsboro, Georgia, and Mike West, who's from Roswell, Georgia, also in there.
Looking at the replay as the ball's going to come right at you. Gregory, short drop, gets it over to the sidelines. Nice catch by Motley as he tucks it in. Looks like Chalp has elected, at least in the beginning of this drive, just to chip away, get some things going. He's had some turnovers, had some drives stalled, get some offense before he tries to go for the end zone.
Pitch to Darby. Boy, he can't get away, and he's dropped for a loss. Again, it's Randall Boone. Some scores from the South. Alabama and Southern Mississippi, 7-7 in the second period. Florida 31, Kentucky 14 in the third quarter. Florida State 17, Memphis State 3 in the second quarter. Auburn has beaten Georgia 20-3. That's a final. Georgia Tech 43, Wake Forest 14, also a final. Here's a surprise. Mississippi in the fourth quarter leading Tennessee 21-20. Second down and 12 for the Thundering Herd. Gregory to go to the air. Boy, he took a hit, and he got rid of it to Ricardo Clark, who made the catch down at the 34-yard line.
Gregory slow.
No, he didn't hold on to it. Incomplete. The ball, he must have lost it as he went down, and it came off the ground.
Watch this. As Gregory drops back, he gets backside pressure and takes a shot.
Michael Berry on the hit. Michael Berry, a sophomore linebacker from Atlanta.
Gregory slow in getting up.
George Chomp not particularly pleased with this turn of events in the third quarter. I thought Clark had it. He must have lost it as he went down.
Well, the replay showed that the ball did come out of his arms as he went down, although it's a call that did he have possession long enough. Judgment call on the official's part. The official ruled he did.
Third and 12 now as Darby comes in motion. To Motley at the 30-yard line. That pass by John Gregory a little low, but Andre went down and got it. He's Marshall's leading receiver on the season. Mike West was there on the coverage. Motley had caught 53 passes coming into this ball game for 849 yards and 9 touchdowns. Gregory to the air on the replay, and there you see Motley hanging it in.
Unless the Herd sticks it in on this play, Georgia's Southern streak of consecutive scoreless third quarters will stay alive.
4 seconds on the clock as Gregory goes back. And he threads the needle into Ricardo Clark, but Clark can't hang on to it as the ball was low once again. Gregory is throwing it a little low. He's under extreme pressure as the Eagles know he has to pass. And they're celebrating the fact in the stands and on the field that another quarter has gone by, another third quarter, and the Eagles have not been scored upon. We'll be back for the fourth quarter of action in just a moment. Well, if he hands it to Darby. Darby, nowhere to go. Lost 2 yards. Shane Maxwell made the stop for Georgia Southern. There you see him, number 44. Notre Dame 14, Penn State 10. That game in the second quarter.
Sounds like it's in the second. That was at a 2:30 start this afternoon.
Started about an hour and 15 minutes ago. This was a 1 o'clock start, and we're nearing 4. Actually kicked off about 10 after. A long ball game with a lot of offense, particularly by Georgia Southern here in the second half. Gregory fires it over Motley's head, intercepted again by Oglesby this time. That's the 4th interception, and Oglesby is still running.
He's going to get...
Vince Bodie missed him, and now John Gregory missed him. And finally, 3 more players missing, and Bodie came back to get in on the tackle down at the 21-yard line.
But we got a flag.
Ron Darby was also in there.
A flag back at the 47-yard line. Long after the interception, it's on the return. Smart money will put it against Georgia Southern. However, good as I am at predictions, it's probably not that way.
Oglesby makes his 3rd interception of the year, and they are picking off John Gregory with alarming regularity here. It's not going to be a good way for this young man to end his career. He has been an outstanding quarterback for the Thundering Herd.
Just a bad pass that time, Bobby. He did have some pressure, but by no means was it pressure that caused the interception. Gregory just overthrew the receiver, and playing center field back there, it's easy to pick them off when they come sailing at you.
Darby made the tackle, as you see on the replay. Bodie got back, and it was amazing the amount of white jersey, the number of white jerseys that Oglesby eluded that time. I don't know how tough it is to run against an offensive unit, but he made it look easy.
Oglesby with good speed, nice moves, but his effort will be nullified.
Penalty brings the ball back to the Georgia Southern 38-yard line. 1st and 10, says Dan Woolridge. We're just into the 4th quarter. 49-24. A crowd of over 21,000 here in Statesboro, Georgia, watching the Eagles go for their 1st undefeated season. And they're looking mighty fine at this time. Gross goes back to pass. A lot of time. Fires it downfield, and it's overthrown, intended for Carl Miller. So that stops the clock.
Gross hasn't put it up very often, but when he has, at least for the big hit for the touchdown, he's 4 for 8, 89 yards. He also hasn't thrown any interceptions, and that's been obviously John Gregory's bane today, as Georgia Southern's picked him off several times.
So 2nd and 10 for the Eagles. Alan E. Paulson Stadium will be the site of the Division I AA championship game on Saturday, the 16th of December. People around here figure that these Eagles will be there. They won it twice. Down inside Marshall territory goes Darrell Hopkins before Von Woodson knocks him out of bounds. Matt Caton is in at a linebacker position, number 40 for the Thundering Herd. He was over there also.
You get into this kind of position where your team is up by 25 points, 49-24. Georgia Southern has the ball, but yet it doesn't look like to me they're running straight dives up the middle trying to grind out the clock. Seeding becomes very important in the 1AA playoffs. Of course, to keep the home field advantage, Kirk Russell may be looking to get some points on the board to impress some people.
Joe Ross breaks away from 3 men, and finally Tim Mitchell rides him down inside the 30 or inside the 40-yard line. Our next break for our stations along the network, our next break will be yours. What an afternoon this gentleman's had. Joe Ross, well over 200 yards. He may be approaching 300 by this time.
If he hadn't been out for a couple of series with an ankle problem, 300 would probably be his already.
At the 39, 1st and 10 for Georgia Southern. Close, rolling out, looking downfield. He fires, and it's off the hands of Terrence Sorrell. Sorrell's only a freshman from Salem, New Jersey. Eric Wiley is there on the coverage. So that stops the clock, and we still have 13:05 to go. Terrell has caught 12 passes coming in, as we pointed out, and Kenny has pointed out. This is not a passing team. He's only a freshman, a redshirt freshman. Excellent wide receiver.
A game like this gives you a chance, though, to work on some things in your offense that you don't know if you have to use later. Georgia Southern may have to pass at some point in the playoffs. Why not throw a few now?
Good point. Gross pitches it to Joe Ross. And Ross dives past the 30, out of bounds. Another first down for the Eagles. Eric Wiley was over there to finally knock him out. Wiley's in the ball game, as is Matt Caton.
It's a straight option play as they roll out to one side, come back, give it to Joe Ross, and he keeps his feet for a nice little gain. Ross playing on that bum ankle. As we said, he hurt it earlier this year, a couple weeks ago. But it looks like he had it taped up today. 21 rushes.
269 yards. Bray Bryant, number 34, sophomore from Weirton, West Virginia, and defensively for Marshall. Gross still has the ball. He turns it upfield and then pitches out to Ernest Thompson. And he gets inside the 25.
Tim Mitchell and Vaughn Woodson on that side, making a defensive play for Marshall.
Well, the clock is stopped with 12:47 to go in the game. 49-24. Georgia Southern on top. It was 28-24 halftime as we had an explosive first half. Second half, all the explosions have been by the Eagles.
Georgia Southern seeking to become only the 9th 1AA team to complete the regular season undefeated, and unless we have a drastic turn of events, that's going to happen.
There's Gross. He pitches it back to Ross. Cuts inside one man and is dragged down inside the 20-yard line. He has good moves. Larry Huffman making the tackle for Marshall. For a fullback, he runs like a halfback. Darrell Hopkins had a good block to spring him loose on that one.
They call it the drive for 5 here in Statesboro, Bob. Georgia Southern looking to make it 5 straight 1AA playoff appearances. They're going to do it on the shoulders of this man, Joe Ross. He's the key to the flex bone. And the key has been in the ignition this afternoon. They're about that far short from a first down. An inch and a half or so.
Short of a first down by inches.
Fourth period score, Duke in front of North Carolina, 41-0. Southern Mississippi and Alabama tied 7-7 at last word in the second period.
Last team to go undefeated in 1AA football, Holy Cross, back in 1987. They were 11-0. Chose not to participate in the 1AA playoffs. The only team to go through an entire season and win the championship undefeated, the Colonels of EKU. They did it in 1982, finished up 13-0.
Lester Eford back in at the fullback position for the Eagles. Gross under some heat. Gets the ball, gets the pass away, but it's incomplete.
Barlow back on the coverage for Marshall. Pass was intended, looks like, for Alonzo McGee.
Rory Fitzpatrick applying the pressure.
It's a 4th down and short. And fans want Irk to go for it.
And Irk and company will go for it.
Well, you never know. Marshall might be able to come back, score a couple touchdowns.
Ross is back in. Eford also is in. And Thompson.
They're looking for insurance now. Thompson over the top.
Thompson over the top for the first down at the 15-yard line. Tim Flaherty gets credit for the tackle. 1st and 10 from the 15 for the Eagles. Carl Miller comes back on the field as Eford comes out. Georgia Southern has scored 7 touchdowns, looking for number 8. Joe Ross hit at the line of scrimmage, still battles his way for a couple of yards. Tim Flaherty making the tackle for Marshall. Our spotter this afternoon has been Kyle Brickman. He's a junior here at Georgia Southern, majoring in communications, and he has a great interest in broadcasting. He's from Orlando, Florida.
Think we can talk him out of it?
Perhaps.
He's done a nice job for us today. Thank you very much, Mr. Brickman. Georgia Southern has not been a team that's let up in the 4th quarter this year, Bob. 83 points in the 3rd quarter. The Eagles have also scored 83 in the 4th.
Gross going right, going left. He pitches to Ross. Ross gets away from one man and finally goes out of bounds down at about the 9-yard line on the far side of the field. Tim Mitchell was over there. Rory Fitzpatrick. And this Eagle offense has given the Marshall defense quite a workout this afternoon. The triple option offense, he calls it the flex bone, does Erk Russell. It's a variation of the wishbone. The variation being they just set their halfbacks differently than other wishbone teams, setting them in slots just outside the offensive tackle. But it's still the triple option. He can keep it, he can pitch it, he can hand it off to the fullback. That's what he likes to do. And the pitch goes to Carl Miller, and Miller goes wide down near the 2-yard line before he's finally belted out of bounds.
Picked up the first and had a great effort to go into the end zone, but he was knocked out of bounds before he could break the plane. Here's a look at it. Coming from the right side of the screen, the pitch. And he heads for the end zone. Watch this, dives, but just doesn't make it. But he does pick up a first down, 1st and goal for the Eagles at the 3.
Number 40, you see there, is Matt Caton. Carl Miller, he's a junior, 6 feet, 177 pounds. Averages 12.5 yards every time he carries the football.
Handles some of the kick returning chores for Georgia Southern.
Now they're into their short yardage or goal line offense. There it goes to Thompson, and he barrels his way in.
That's a shocker, isn't it? Give it to Ernest Thompson down low, and he's in the end zone for his 16th touchdown.
Georgia Southern, unbeaten, the #1 ranked AA team in the country, and I think you can see why. Ernest Thompson scores another touchdown. Eric Wiley had a shot at him, but to no avail.
They have an entry on their Georgia Southern game notes. How many times has typist Susie Hansen made the entry on the play-by-play? Thompson, touchdown.
It is now 56-24. A 32-point margin. 28 points in the second half for Georgia Southern, and Marshall unable to counter. It was 28-24 at halftime as the teams seesawed back and forth. And we'll be back for the final 10:44 of the game after you look at this. Stadium record. This stadium built in 1984, and Georgia Southern has lost only 1 game here. At the goal line, Thundering Herd takes it in. This is Orlando Hatchett, and he does not get back to the 20. Barely crosses the 15. So Marshall trailing now 56-24.
Look at the scoring drive, 13 plays, 62 yards. The end result the same. Thompson on a 2-yard touchdown run, 3 minutes and 15 seconds, but it seemed much longer, didn't it?
Well, about every play they were going wide, running out of bounds. Even the pass completions were on the sidelines out of bounds, stopping the clock.
This reminiscent of the game Georgia Southern had against James Madison. James Madison erupted for 21 first-half points, and the Eagles' defense shut them down after the break. It's been that way thus far in this game as well.
John Gregory has had a tough afternoon. Fires it for Bartram. Mike couldn't hold it. It's 28. Gregory in the first half had great statistics. 14 out of 25, good for 220 yards. But here in the second half, he has been shut down. Mike West on the coverage that time for Georgia Southern. A very picturesque setting here, this bowl, Paulson Stadium. Georgia Pines in the distance. Again, Gregory to go up top. Being rushed. Eludes one man. Still looking. Now he decides to take it out of there. Across the 20. Gets out of bounds at about the 21. He gains 6 yards. So that'll bring up 3rd down. Shane Maxwell was the man who took him out. John Gregory. His career at Marshall winding down. It has been an illustrious one. Every pass he completes is a new Southern Conference record in yardage, as he had 67.09, broke the old record last week.
Nobody was open. Gregory wanted to throw it, wisely decided not to. Might have ended up in an unpleasant situation for the Herd had he decided to air it out.
Tony Byers, the redshirt freshman, number 79, chasing him there. He's in the lineup as Erk Russell begins to give some other players a shot at some game time. Boy, Maxwell came on the blitz and nailed the Winder Georgia, Shane Maxwell, number 44. He was untouched. Tony Byers also coming hard. There he is, number 79.
It's a problem we run into when you put in new players. These guys haven't seen much action. They're second, third, fourth stringers. They want to play well. They want to impress. They're enthusiastic, a lot of energy. Sure, their team's up by a huge margin, but they're still going to come out and play hard, and that's when it gets into blowout territory. And Russell's obviously not trying to run the score up. He's just putting guys into play, and they want to do well for him.
They're working on Raymond Gross's ankle, the quarterback, down on the sidelines as Marshall J.R. McVicker gets ready to punt. 19, that's Oglesby, Rodney Oglesby, back deep. McVicker standing at his own 3. High snap. Almost blocked, but he gets it away. Oglesby takes it in at the 46. Georgia Southern crosses midfield to about the 47 of Marshall, and he goes out of bounds. So the Eagles will put it in play. I do not think Raymond Gross is coming back out.
His day is over. He's done his job well.
We'll be back here at Paulson Stadium in Statesboro, Georgia, in just a moment. You're looking into the huddle of the Eagles of Georgia Southern, and Albert Huntley is at quarterback now. He's a sophomore from Atlanta. A whole flock of new players in for Georgia Southern. This is Eford right up the middle. He's the backup fullback into the Marshall 20 down to the 19-yard line. A huge gain before Tim Mitchell and Eric Wiley make the tackle. Eford, the backup fullback from Warner Robins, spelling Joe Ross, the young man from Augusta, the home of the Masters, who had such a spectacular afternoon. We still have 9 minutes to go in the ball game.
Checking on Raymond Gross on the sidelines. Doesn't look like he was hurt at all. They were just taking the tape off of his ankles, letting him walk around. So it's not an injury problem that sidelined him. He's just...
They were working on his ankles, but they were removing the tape. You're right. I looked down. I thought he'd been injured. Huntley keeps it. And he drives down to the 3-yard line before he's finally knocked down. Well, I'm telling you, this second unit wants to play some. Dirk Russell has not done Marshall a favor by putting these guys in.
Georgia Southern just has an outstanding team. They're obviously very deep, very talented, playing at home, comfortable with who they are in the position in the polls, undefeated, a team with a mission, wanting to go all the way, and you can't fault them for wanting to play hard. 56-24, Georgia Southern on top. 8.5 minutes to go in the ball game.
Delaware leading Navy 10-9, that game in the 4th period. Huntley brings him up to the line of scrimmage. Eford, the fullback. He gets the ball and waltzes in for another touchdown for Georgia Southern. Tim Flaherty was over there, the junior from Pittsburgh. He just could not make the play. And now it is 62-24. I do not recall the last time Marshall had this many points scored against it. I remember back in the 70s, Louisville beat Marshall 66-0. And this is a stadium record for Georgia Southern. We have a new place kicker. Number 39 kicked that one through for the extra point. Mike Dallas taking a break. And now it is 63-24. And we'll be back for Georgia Southern's kickoff. Marshall's Thundering Herd. Orlando Hatchett takes the kickoff at the 5-yard line. And out to the 30, where Marshall will put it in play 1st and 10. And a lot of new defensive players come onto the field for Irk Russell's ball club. Gene Scott, the sophomore from Gainesville, number 15 is in. Number 42, Jim Mutimer, another sophomore. He's from Dunwoody, Georgia. They're both in the defensive backfield.
scoring drive took just 1 minute and 13 seconds off the clock. 3 plays, 55 yards. Ended up with Efert with a 3-yard touchdown run. 63 points, as Bob told you. A new Paulson Stadium and Glenn Bryant record.
Mark Giles from Warner Robins, another sophomore in that defensive backfield. This is Ron Darby paddling out to the 38-yard line for Marshall. Darby from Orangeburg, South Carolina, about 90 miles north of here. Paul Sickley in the lineup, made the tackle.
Have an interesting situation at Statesboro and the Georgia Southern campus. When they get large donations from individuals, they name the facilities after them. The building, the field is called Glenn Bryant Field after the individual who donated the land. The stadium, of course, Allen E. Paulson Stadium.
This is Darby again, and he's being chased over there and barely gets back to the line of scrimmage. Paul Sickley once again on the tackle, backup linebacker. Here's some late scores. Holy Cross has beaten Bucknell 35-6. Furman 44, the Citadel 3. That game in the fourth period. Appalachian State in front of Western Carolina 24-0 in the third. Southwest Missouri leading Liberty University 21-7 in the third period. Eastern Kentucky and Morehead State 17-17 in the fourth period. Again, it's Darby. He finds some running room, breaks a tackle, and is out near midfield. Also, William & Mary has beaten Richmond 22-10, Harvard 37, Yale 20. That's a final. Massachusetts leading New Hampshire 34-28, and Youngstown State in front of Towson State 38-7. Those are the ranked teams playing this afternoon in Division I AA. And most of those teams will be going to the playoffs. Clint Averett, a sophomore from Jacksonville, Florida, in the defensive backfield for Georgia Southern, made the tackle that time on Darby. Six and a half minutes remaining in the ball game. There's Gregory to pass, and he completes it upfield to the tight end Eric Enot at the 35-yard line of the Eagles. Marshall had 321 yards of offense in that first half and still trailed by 4 to the Eagles. Mark Giles making the defensive stop. And I'm sure that offensive unit of the Thundering Herd would like to get on the board at least once here in the second half.
It's just something, it's a pride thing, a character building thing. Georgia Southern has outscored its opponents 201-20 after halftime. Marshall would, I'm sure, like to put something on the board just to make a statement.
Gregory, he looks, he throws, and it's incomplete. I think he was intending that for Mike Bartram, but the ball was way off the mark. Curtis Gordon, a defensive tackle in the ball game, putting pressure on Gregory.
When a team has been as successful in recent years as Marshall University has been, the fans tend to get very spoiled. A 6-5 record looked upon not with a lot of favorable glances from the green and white boosters, but George Chomp lost 8 defensive starters from last year. He's had one of the toughest schedules in the country in 1AA. Marshall has nothing to be ashamed of in going down to Georgia Southern. The Eagles are great ball club.
There it is to Andre Motley. He breaks the tackle that goes down at the 11-yard line. Well, Marshall has had the 9th best record in 1AA in the last 5 years. Of course, Georgia Southern has had the best, including 2 championships. Here's this again. Gregory, who has not had much success in this second half, to Andre Motley. There's the tackle by Gene Scott, and he's dropped at the 11.
A shoestring save.
And the fans beginning to leave the stadium here as Ron Darby takes the pitch, drives and battles inside the 5 to the 3-yard line, and flags fly at that juncture. Shane Maxwell on the defensive stop. We'll see what the flags are about.
Check out the run by Darby as he takes the pitch from John Gregory. Darby, as we've said all day, tough runner, especially when he gets near the goal line. Takes a hit, is momentarily stopped, manages to pick up just another yard or so before he's finally brought down.
15 seniors on this Marshall team playing their last game for the Thundering Herd, and I know they've had an outstanding career, excellent record over the past 4 years, but today's whipping a bitter disappointment. And of course, Georgia Southern looking for the playoffs and another national championship. The championship game will be held here on the 16th. Ron Darby dives, but he didn't quite make it. The 16th of December, and Georgia Southern, certainly as we talked with athletic director Bucky Wagner at halftime, looking for their ball club to be in it. Steve Bussoletti on the stop.
Give them the cheerleaders a lot to be happy about today in Georgia Southern. They're up over Marshall by 39 points, 63-24. Looks like the Herd, though, is going to get on the board in the second half and give the folks in green and white something to be happy about.
Ball at the 1. It's Darby. I don't think he made it.
Not that time.
Again, it was Bussoletti. Also, Giff Smith, who's back in the ball game. So that'll bring up a third down. Kerry Parks, number 44, checking in. Parks has seen a lot of action this season at both fullback and tailback. He started the season as the starting fullback. Michael Bryant, the fullback of a year ago, hurt his knee in the last regular season game and played very sparingly a year ago and played very sparingly early in the season. Darby gets in for the touchdown. So Marshall does get on the board here late in the ball game after being shut out in the third period. That's 11 straight opponents that Georgia Southern has shut out in the third period. And that's only 26 points the Eagles have given up in the second half. All of them in the fourth period.
On the replay, Darby gets into the end zone, gets a little shot after he crosses the line, but nothing serious. He just flips the ball to the ground, goes to the sidelines. Marshall is going to get point number 31 on the board.
It's a small consolation, I'm sure, to the Marshall players as Dewey Klein makes the extra point good. This is the most points given up by Georgia Southern this season. So we have 4 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. We'll be back for that momentarily. Four minutes, 10 seconds remaining in this game. The score is now 65-31. 63-31.
63-31.
94 points.
They don't need any extra help from us.
Marshall will kick it off to a whole new set of backs once again for Georgia Southern. Tyler Timian puts his foot into it. It comes up short and bounces. Picked up at the 7-yard line. Battling out to the 30. Number 23, that is Rolando Ficklin, the backup fullback.
Kirk Russell showing his jubilation with this game on the sidelines. Of course, Kirk, a very reserved individual. Doesn't get too far up, too far down, but he can't be unhappy with his team. They've gone undefeated for him, the first time in Georgia Southern history that the Eagles have managed to accomplish that feat.
10 plays, 70 yards, 4 minutes, 2 seconds. Darby on a 1-yard run. Visited with Kirk Russell yesterday, a very pleasant gentleman. Derek McGrady, number 9 in the ball game. And there he is. He's running the quarterback right now. The ball carrier on that play was Lester Eford, the backup fullback. McGrady has not seen much action this season. So Huntley appeared just briefly. He's the backup quarterback. This is the number 3 quarterback, Derek McGrady. He hands it off to Eford. He gets very little yardage. John Humphreys, the middle guard, in on the tackle, along with Mark Blake for the Thundering Herd.
When a game gets to this point and the score is what it is, and of course it's a season ender for both squads with 4:15 left in the fourth quarter, it's a time when you bring in players who you don't know anything about, you don't know where they're from, they start clearing the benches.
Here's Ficklin, number 23, checking in at fullback as Eford comes out of there. The clock went to 0. Now it's back, running once again. And I think this is the thing that the officials down on the field are talking about. It went clear to 0. Now it came back on, and it's running. They're going to readjust it. And we will continue, friends, as we're at approximately 18 minutes after 4 o'clock. This ball game is 3 hours and 8 minutes old. There's McCready. He keeps it. Cuts upfield, eludes tacklers, and gets into Marshall territory to 44-yard line. Well, Georgia Southern just keeps bringing them on.
Garrett McCready is a 5'9", 171-pound freshman from Statesboro.
Local boy. Jared Thomas making the tackle. There you look at him on the replay.
In the spring game here at Georgia Southern, he rushed for 5 yards on 8 carries, had a long run of 9 for Georgia Southern's Blue Squad. Didn't complete a pass in 2 attempts. Of course, that was early this spring. He's now in running the offense.
And Marshall has called timeout with 3:17 remaining in the game. Final game of the season for the Thundering Herd, and for Georgia Southern, the top-ranked 1AA team in the country, the final regular season game, 11-0. As you look at the first team, Joe Ross, number 36, he had a magnificent afternoon. He's back up equal to 35.
A lot of teams point their fingers to the sky. These guys have earned it, and they are currently number 1 in the country, looking to finish that way in December in the final game of the season, which of course will be down here at Paulson Stadium.
That timeout was for Tim Mitchell, who was injured, shaken up on that play. Tim getting up. He's from Decatur, Georgia, a junior. He'll be back with the Thundering Herd next year. He's walking off the field.
McCready is seeing his first collegiate action. So they're breaking him in. You know, that's a nice way to get started. You come in, your team does it, not a lot of pressure on you. Just come in, run the offense. He was a 3-year starter at quarterback and defensive back for the Statesboro Blue Devils. He was the team captain the senior season for his high school squad.
1st and 10 for Georgia Southern. Very little gain on that play for the Eagles. Morehead State and Eastern Kentucky tied 17-17 at last report in the 4th quarter. Eastern Kentucky, one of the top 1AA teams in the country. Morehead State's coming on strong as Bill Baldridge, a fine gentleman, winds down his career at Morehead State University in Kentucky. He has resigned effective at the end of the season. Morehead State, the home of Phil Simms, the alma mater of Phil Simms, the quarterback with the New York Giants. So McCready rolls out with it, going wide to the left. Nowhere to go. Picks up a couple, and that's about it. And somebody just got drenched with some Gatorade or water down on the sideline. Not Irk Russell. I don't think if I were a player with Georgia Southern, I would want to be the one to throw a bucket of anything on Irk Russell.
Although there is a picture.
So we pick on one of the assistant coaches.
There is a picture of Irk getting drenched in the media guide.
Well, yeah, I see that. He probably says, fellas, don't do that again.
He's probably there to remind him of how cold it was.
A graduate of Auburn University back in 1949. Again, it's McCready. He shovels it forward. The ball is dropped and then picked up and down at the 40. Now, that was a forward pass. Bray Bryant just got flagged for a shot to the head after the play was over. Way over, away from the action, and just accidentally I happened to be looking at it. And I saw it happen, and they dropped the flag on Bryant.
It's frustration, plain and simple. You're down 63-31. It's your final game of the season.
Larry Huffman made the tackle for Marshall. He's winding down an outstanding career. He's from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Mark Blake, it's his final game. Rory Fitzpatrick, who's from up in Akron, Ohio. Von Woodson from Oak Hill, West Virginia, playing his final game. The Eagles will be back here next Saturday against an opponent which will be named on Sunday for the 1AA playoffs. You know, Georgia Southern's going to get the home field.
Well, they don't.
And the Eagles figure to be in the championship game December the 16th. They hope to be. Anything can happen in the playoffs, but well, now we have the clock stopped with 1:25. The officials wave it stopped, and they will have a little conversation.
Bob, this game marks Georgia Southern's 33rd straight home victory. The all-time record in 1AA held by Eastern Kentucky The Colonels did it from 1978 to 1983. They won 34 in a row. Georgia Southern is working on number 33 next week in the playoffs. If they are at home, if they win, they'll tie the record and look to break it before the season ends.
They waved Bray Bryant off the field. I think he was ejected. Eric Wiley checks back in. I think that's why they stopped the clock and told him he had to leave. Well, there's a fumble, a mix-up, and Huffman's in there for Marshall, but the ball is recovered by the Thundering Herd, not Huffman. Let's see who gets out of there with it.
Mark Mason?
Mason made the recovery. So the Marshall offensive unit comes back on the field with 1 minute and 5 seconds left to go in the game. Score 63-31. Georgia Southern. You look at that fumble again.
Just a mistake on the exchange. Inexperience.
These fellas have not played a lot.
No, McCready seeing his first collegiate action. Don't believe Irk Russell's going to lose too many sleepless nights over that one.
Well, John Gregory is back out there. He's gone all the way at quarterback. Had a great first half, a tough second half. Gregory winding down his career, as is Ron Darby. He fires it up, complete to Eric Enoch. And Gregory continues to rack up yards. Clint Averett and Mark Giles. Backup defensive backs making the tackle. Clock stopped at 53 seconds now. Greg Adkins from Cross Lanes, West Virginia, offensive right tackle, making his final appearance for Marshall.
Here's a look at some of the people who brought you the action today.
Our crew, who really does all the work. Gregory loses the ball, and it's recovered by the Eagles. So Georgia Southern gets it back.
31 seconds left in the game.
Old number 98. That's Tommy Harmon's number when he won the Heisman Trophy up at Michigan many years ago. The backs and linemen, you could have any number. Red Grange wore 77. I don't remember that. But Tommy Harmon wore 98. That's Sean Harrelson.
How about that picture?
Freshman from Westminster, Maryland.
How about that picture I have of you and Red Grange?
Me and Red, huh? Pudge Heffelfinger played at Yale in 1888. He was an All-American. We went to high school together.
Here's McCready again.
He keeps it. And he moved down to the 21-yard line. Clock running with 25 seconds left to go. As this ball game is winding down finally. A magnificent second half performance by the Eagles of Georgia Southern, scoring 5 touchdowns. As you continue to see,
they're going for it. They're going to try to run a play.
Who work so hard here to make this telecast possible. Boy, McCready kept it. I'm not sure just what was the intent of that play, but finally it is all over. And the game has come to an end with Georgia Southern maintaining its unbeaten record and beating Marshall 63-31. Final 63-31, Georgia Southern over Marshall. Kenny, a great first half, a seesaw battle, 28-24 at halftime, as both teams put on great offensive shows, the Thundering Herd of Marshall and the Eagles of Georgia Southern. But the second half, as has been the case all season, belonged to the Eagles.
Joe Ross, incredible afternoon, 24 carries for 280 yards. He finishes up the regular season with 1,354 yards on the year.
Well, that's it. This is Bob Bowen for Kenny Bass from Statesboro, Georgia. The final score, Georgia Southern 63-31. This afternoon's ball game brought to you by
You think it isn't easy to meet new people? Well, opportunities exist, but you have to make the first move. Call the Romance Hotline at 1-900-370-9100. Imagine having fun like this. Get together with other singles. Call 1-900-370-9100. One phone call could change your whole life. Go ahead, pick up the phone. Call the Romance Hotline at 1-900-370-9100. $2 for the first minute, $1 for each additional minute. For adults only.
You bought